edition of Comics Cast let it out on a beautiful Easter Sunday, April 17th, 2022. And after a brief break from not doing a show last week, we are back with a spectacular guest. And when I say spectacular, I mean phenomenal. But before I get to that, let's talk a little bit about what Comics Cast is. Comics Cast is all about the independent creator. Whether you're a writer, an artist, an inker, you name it. If you're in the indie community, comic community, we want you on the show, and that's what Comics Cast Let It Out is about. We feature those particular individuals, and we go into a little bit more intimate setting where we do a draw and talk interview. But it's more of a conversation than a Q&A. And today we're going to have a phenomenal guest. His name is John Delaney. He's won multiple awards. He's worked on such IPs as Futurama, The Simpsons, Scooby-Doo, DC Comics. He's done work with Golden Books. He's an animator, director, a musician. There's just so much to love about this guy. He's a phenomenal talent, and it's our pleasure, it's our honor to feature him today on Easter Sunday. So that being said, let's get to the show. Hey! John, welcome to Comics Cast Let It Out. I hope I didn't make you blush with all those accolades that you so well deserved. How you doing today?
Very good, very good. I do blush at those sort of things, but thank you very much. That's very kind here with you. And we had a little meet and greet yesterday. I had such a blast. I'm really looking forward to today.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. And just so you know, our audience that's just joining right now, I just dropped in the comment field how you can follow, like, subscribe, commission the great John Delaney. He is on Instagram. That's his primary means of communication at johndelaney40.com or .com. Instagram, on Instagram. Yeah. You can check him out there and just drop him a personal message. Let him know that you love his artwork, because when you see what we're going to show today, you will love it, and you will definitely appreciate all the time and talent that this man has put into his artwork. So that, without further ado, I want to welcome you, and I also want to go right into the segment that we call the origin story, and that's where I put the mic in our guests' hands, and they basically tell their origin story and where their humble beginnings started and where they are like right now. So when I hand that mic over to him, I'm going to put up some visual eye candy here of some of John's phenomenal work, and we'll just go from there. So now the mic is in your hands, John. Tell us your origin story.
Okay. My parents built a rocket, and they were concerned about the end of their planet, so they far away. I landed next door. Unfortunately, the Delaney's were lovely people. They raised me. That was awesome. Just kidding around. I was born in Winnipeg. Raised there till about 17. And I went to Vancouver to work in animation. Did many years there. And then always wanted to be a comic book artist. So I'll tell you an interesting story about perseverance. When I was 16 years old, I got it in my mind, 100% I want to be a comic book artist. I grew up in an artist family. Art was very encouraged. My mother actually, look at our drawings, and she'd say, okay, I could give you mom's critique and tell you they're one. I can tell you what's wrong with them. And we'd always take what's wrong. And she was really great about pushing us a little bit more. It's pretty cool. But so I got it in my mind at 16 that I really wanted to work for, probably leaning more towards DC. I'm a big Superman guy. So I would send in 4 pages of continuity. I would draw 4 actual pages of, say, Batman, meeting Commissioner Gordon, then up on a rooftop, or all these things, just sequential art. So I could show that I could draw in sequential art. And I'd send that to DC in January. And then in June, I would send 4 pages. And one of the cool parts back then, I've been doing this for a few years. I'm 30 years into this business. So back then, you'd actually send things unsolicited, a lawyer to represent you. So I would just send in FedEx packages. And the great part about that was they thought they were FedEx packages from established artists, right? So they open up.
Well, you are an established artist.
No, then I wasn't. So they liked what they saw, and they would regularly send me notes and stuff. This could improve that. So here's the perseverance story. 11 years later, I got signed by DC Comics, but I never stopped saying submission.
Yes.
What happened was I got
Never.
into working in animation. You're drawing every day.
So
your skill level shoots up. You know, I was doing drawing courses and that sort of thing. And as I was getting into storyboarding for animation, I was just learning how to tell a story a lot better too. And just really kind of getting down my strong anatomy, strong sense of blacks, how, you know, how you would spot the blacks in comic books, just studying a lot more and you're working with a lot of other comic book artists. And so, yes, 11 years later, I got a call from Watchman in DC Comics. He said, "Hey, Juan, I'd like you to draw Super Mr. Mitchie Spidlick." And I had no idea how to say that name before that. That's how you say that name? He goes, "That's the first thing you responded with?"
Well, you know, you were probably floored because
history.
You get to draw Superman. So, you know, and I like to think that your name is actually John Delaney L or John Dell, and then you made it John DL.
John Dell.
I'm
John Dell from the.
Yeah.
I love it. Love that. I've never done that before. I love that. John is me forever now.
Right. I think you were like next door to, you know, your parents were next door to Jor-El, and they said, "Hey, you know, let's just send our sons to planet Earth." You ended up in Canada, and he ended up in Kansas. So, you know, that yeah. But this is such a great
competition. No direct competition.
No. And like I said, it's all about perseverance. And I just love your story because, you know, you talk about, you know, this day and age, a lot of aspiring comic book artists, everything is like submitted digitally, or you have like an online portfolio, but you were doing it the grassroots way. You were doing it. You were making, I guess, copies of your artwork, FedExing it. It was expensive, blind sending it. But you know what? You did them in official FedEx Classics packages. Yeah, and that's a great story. Yeah. And
no, that really did help there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were you know finished talking. We have a little bit of.
I was just going to say that. Little delay, a little audio delay here, but no, you're absolutely right. My whole thing back then, you know, was just wanting to get in. And yes, it did cost a lot. You know, you're sending these FedEx packages, and I would even send them in boxes because even though I was using photos, I knew that they generally got them in boxes. So that's how the payment. So I was spending even to get these things. I was just so determined, and you know, I got so many great responses. Dano, who later became, you know, kind of a pseudo mentor at first, it was really, really wonderful about giving me, you know, telling me to read Betty Edwards' Drawing on the Right to the Brain, take more life drawing on that. Carl Potts had phenomenal. So I had so many great editors that when I finally did get signed on by Casey Carlson, I was able to walk in. You know, they brought me out to New York, and I, you know, met everybody in DC, and there was Steve Giordano. Just happened to be there because he wasn't actually working there anymore, and I had a chance to meet with him, and I had a chance to meet with Denny O'Neil and, you know, Joe Orlando, and just all these guys that had huge influences on me. And I'm standing in this bullpen with all these people, thinking to myself, when did this happen? But you know, 11 years to make it happen. But it's about and keep going, right? You know, so I say this to a lot of young artists who are out there because everything's so instant now. You put something on your thing, you're always expecting an immediate response. It doesn't go there in our industry. It takes a long time for people to find your work and then find how your work would apply to the project they want. Keep going.
Yeah, those are great words of encouragement. And you know, I'm flipping through your artwork here, and you know, we did. You're gonna have to forgive me because I'm a little bit fanboying about all this stuff because I look at your artwork and I do see. You know, you were talking about your experience being an animator and just mastering. You know, constantly drawing. Everybody says you have to like spend like 10,000 hours like to master things. I think you cut your teeth in the industry doing animation, and you probably were relieved. Like, hey, when I was doing like hundreds of drawings to do like a minute of animation, and here it's like I only have to do a panel, you know, now. But it's great storytelling nonetheless, and I love the line weights. I love the positive negative usage. I mean, it's so rich, and it speaks volumes of the, you know, your mastery of the line and positive negative space. But it's I see so many influences, and you were basically just it was a who's who of DC Comics greats that you had mentioned there, and it's like
Yeah.
You were like Kevin Bacon there. It's like now that I've met you, I feel like I'm closer to greats. It's 6 degrees, 7 degrees of John Delaney here.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's just
I'll take it.
it. Yeah, it's really, yes, you are famous, and that's another thing that I want to talk
Oh,
about. I
cool.
think I'm going to kind of like let's see, I have a bunch of pictures here. I'm going to actually, I hope it's not embarrassing you, but I wanted to scroll down here
No.
because you mentioned about how you were in your early artistic development. You're a multi-talented guy. Not only do you illustrate, but you're a gifted musician. You also sing, and I found this on your Instagram page. Madhouse Tactics. You want to talk a little bit? Let's take a little bit of
that's
we'll
my
take
man.
a little bit moment. And then, we're gonna go into your art. We're definitely gonna do that, but let's talk a little bit about John, the musician.
This is funny. This picture is actually only taken about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. So I had the hair and I was clean shaven. During COVID, I thought, drying my hair for an hour is kind of bumming me out, So I cut the hair and I grew the beard and I stopped, lightening. And so now I have a very different look than the Madhouse Tactics look, but yeah, it is what it is.
Oh, well, I tell you,
we play a lot. We're actually doing
keep on going. Yep. little delay. Keep on talking.
Oh, I was just saying on July the 15th in Kelowna, and some pictures of watch me. I find it funny whenever I see pictures of myself playing live. I'm always like, but whatever. It's part of the game.
Well, I think it's awesome, and this is my favorite pick right here. Ladies love John. You could be LL Cool J, Canada, and I have to say, living the dream. But what kind of music does Madhouse
that's a play. It's a play, just so you guys understand. I don't normally parade around with women falling off me. I was playing Stacey Jackson, Rock of Ages there, so yes, that was part of a play. The band in the background. That doesn't happen in my life every day. That would be wonderful, but it does not happen.
Okay, so tell me, what kind of music does Madhouse Tactics like?
We're kind of a heavy rock band. I wouldn't say we're metal or anything like that, but we're definitely influenced by bands like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and that kind of thing. So we got a little bit of an edge to us, but it's kind of fun and hit orientated. Like we like the riffs, we like the stuff, so people can move and dance to our music. But we're pretty heavy, and we like to really throw it out there. And I love it. It's a great band. I've played in many bands over the years. I principally was for a band called John Delaney and the Indestructibles, and we played in Vancouver for a very, very long time. Big R&B band, horns, background singers a little bit. But when I did that play, I started singing rock songs again, and I hadn't done that in a couple of years, and I really missed it. So then I met these guys. I met Madhouse Tactics, and I just said, guys, I just want to sing these kind of songs, and there's some kind of songs we want to do. So it just it really fell together very nicely.
That's awesome. I mean, I feel woefully inadequate as an artist because I can't play an instrument, I can't sing, and it's amazing when I have guests on the show that are just multi-talented. And let's get back to the art.
I think it's we all have our thing. We all got our thing, and I sort of always look at it this way: like, so I take my car to the garage, the racks is not running right, and they go, it's out of gas. So we all have our thing,
I gotcha. It's like your car is out of headlight fluid. It's one of those type of things. But,
yeah. I mean, I totally.
Yeah, but
so when it comes to that, but I can rock pretty well, right? So.
You're right, and this is another one of my favorite ones that you did, because Dark Side rocks ABBA. That is just this is a perfect example of John's sense of humor. It encompasses your humor, your musical influences, and your art influences. So I think this is a perfect illustration on Instagram that I found here. But I just wanted to touch more about on some of your. This is another basically just a good representation of all the properties and IPs that you had influence on. And then you can also do you do have a cartoon style. I like this one. This is a little bit more realistic comic style as well. So you basically can adapt to all sorts of different looks.
Well, that's the nice thing about working in animation. You end up learning how to draw in different styles, you understand that illustrations themselves break down into shapes first before you ever put any details in it. So my personal style, whenever I'm drawing something like, for myself or for, say, a pitch, it's a lot more realistic. It's a little bit more like this kind of thing. But because DC loves me to draw more of the Bruce Timm animated style and that kind of thing, which is great, and it's been lovely.
Right.
And they've given me a lot of it. I mean, when I first started, I did Adventures in the DC Universe, which was every DC character, and they hadn't been designed yet. Justice League hadn't even come out yet, so it was only Superman and Batman. So I got to redesign all these characters. So Kyle Rayner was Green Lantern, Wally West was Flash, Connor Hawke was Green Arrow. That was what was happening at the time. Captain Atom, all those hadn't been designed yet. Even Wonder Woman hadn't been designed yet. So it was very, very cool. Wow. So when I met Bruce Timm, we were end up talking about that, saying like, oh, we're on feet first, as far as having to do that. But fortunately, my background in animation was pretty good. And I understood that when I read Mad Love, I could see all the Kirby influences and I could see all the Toth influences. And those are big influences on me. So that's what I started moving towards when I started doing Adventures in the DC Universe, was going, okay, I could draw this to him, but Bruce Timm already is there. He's out there. I wanted to draw in artists that you probably couldn't get a lot of access to their work. So I leaned more towards Alex Toth and more towards Jack Kirby. That's why the characters ended up having a lot of backs and a lot of, sort of shadow lines, because Kirby loves that and so does Toth. A lot of these sketches that you're seeing right now that are being popped up, like that, those are sketches I do at the Comic-Cons. And for me, Comic-Cons are about meeting the fans. So I draw right in front of them at the time. I don't send anybody away. I say, sit down, hang out, we'll talk, and I'll whip this up. So usually these take me about 15 to 20 minutes. So they're a little sketchy, a little rougher, but they're you see me draw it, you interact with me, then I hand it for you and I hand it to you, and that's a legitimate work for you forever, sort of thing. So that's always been my thing at a Comic-Con. I don't want to send anybody away. I don't want them to leave. I want them to actually enjoy the interaction and draw whatever they're wanting me to draw.
That is outstanding, and it's all about the relationship and with your fans, aspiring artists. And I love that interactivity, because I can tell you that I've gone to cons and it's kind of like sometimes I think most artists are introverts, and I'm gonna have to say that, John, you are not an introvert. you ooze charisma, and maybe that's that.
Oh, listen to you! Come on, man. I'm already on the show. You don't have to keep selling.
Well, anyway, as we're going to speak about like musicians here, I love this Snoop that you did here, and this is an example of.
Oh, thanks.
This is an example of a more realistic style. And I love how you've incorporated.
This is kind of a cool one.
Yeah. Keep on going. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of a cool one, and the fact I'm doing this working with this company called Rock Gods NFT. If you go on IG, it's Rock God NFT. If you go on Discord, Rock Gods, and they're creating an ability for you not only create NFTs, but create NFTs for like concert tickets and stuff. So you'll be able to guarantee. When we're trying to get concert tickets, try to compete in all the phone computers, but all the scalpers and that. It's very, very tough. So these guys have divided for us to actually get guaranteed tickets to shows you want to see, and they're creating these sort of unique characters. Each one have all these different variables, because every time I create a character, multiple hairs, multiple eyes, skin tones, different clothes and stuff. So every time the computer prints out, it's a brand new and original NFT for it. So you can purchase it and have an original piece. And you're the only person that has the blockchain on that. So it is literally an original piece. So this Snoop Dogg was kind of fun, because his people reached out to us. They really love what you're doing. So we got to draw Snoop now, because they reached out, right? So we did that one and we sent that over to them. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. And in fact, now that I've learned a little bit more that this is actually an NFT type art piece, I'd like to have you back. We're gonna actually throw together like some artists that have actually worked with the NFT platform, and I'd just like to hear your experience. But we'll definitely touch on that a little bit later on in another show. I just really want to showcase your art right here. And speaking of like your animation roots, I wanted to like talk about this. Apparently you
Voltron.
Yes, Voltron. You I think this is you directed and co-designed Voltron Force, a sequel to the highly successful anime series Voltron, Defender of the Universe. And to me, Voltron is near and dear to my heart. In fact, when I always have like a crew that comes on to the show, whether it's like when it's like a writer, artist, inker, or like, if it's more than one guest, I always like talk about, hey, let's talk about the story when you were individuals and then you came together and formed Voltron. That's how I usually use my, to describe it. And when I saw that I actually have a guy that's going to be on the show that worked on Voltron, it was like, oh man, I got to hear this story. So you want to talk a little bit about how this opportunity came about?
Sure. So I've been directing in animation for quite some time, and I directed the show Chaotic, and I directed a lot of commercials with superheroes and that. So I started to get this reputation in animation specifically for action adventure stuff and superhero stuff. So I got announced that they were going to be doing it. Nickelodeon was going to be doing a reboot. I'd sort of put it out there to a couple of different people I knew in the industry saying, if that becomes an available thing, I freaking love the original Voltron. I would love to, jump in and get that. So I got a call back from some dear friends of mine at Kickstart Canada, not Kickstarter, but Kickstart. That's the name of the animation house. Heather Patak, wonderful producer. And she reached out to me and said, would you like to do a pitch for Voltron? And I said, sure. And she said, can you do it like now? I was like, oh, okay. She was there with the producers. So we're on the phone. And I knew what I wanted to do, but, I'd never talked to these guys before. So the first thing I started saying was, guys, I love the original Voltron because of the scale. Everything looked so big. He looked huge. There was an epic nature the way that was done. And each one time I would see, space shows, they were getting less and less epic. The background was this black space, and little stars and that kind of thing. And I looked at things coming from the Hubble telescope and all those different things. Space looks much more three-dimensional. It looks much deeper. And there's all kinds of and nebulas, right? So we're seeing that in a lot of this now. But this is 20 years ago. So when they came to me, I kept saying the word. We needed to have depth. Space needs to have weight. All the ships and Voltron himself is CGI, so that we can do this really intricate, detail. Make it look 2D, and the characters will be done in 2D. Well, they love that, and I said epic so many times because they kept me so epic. Then epic. But I got the gig, and so that was great.
Yeah,
they had some initial design done. And so I just took those over and said, the initial designs were lovely and that, but I sort of felt they were too indicative of what had come before. So I just wanted to push them a little bit further away. Just even things like skin tones, I found all the characters were like suddenly this sort of homogenous. So I want to make Pidge look a little more Eurasian kind of thing. I added a little bit of a darker skin tone teeth just to give him a little more like he might be, closer to sort of a Asian kind of vibe. And I just wanted them to all have a little bit more unique look to them, sort of thing. So fashioning them. Then I got a chance to redesign when Sven came back, which was everybody had the Sven Lives things, and so that was cool. And so then we started designing the look, and the look really was. You'll even see from that shot. There's Voltron coming from space. Space is lighter blue area, right? And then we would have it go into teals and things. And then we decided that such of the colors would dictate what one of the characters were doing. They wanted to create a Volcon machine that sat on their wrist. I could, then put together a weapon. I got to design that, and we figured this was black. You couldn't really have black light coming out, so we started using teals for him, but everybody else had their colors. So it was really a great discovery and figuring out what we wanted to do with these characters. And I went for 2 solid years, and we were the highest-rated show ever to open on Nicktoons at the time of our release. So that was a great honor. People really tuned in. It was fun.
Yeah, well, if they're like me, it's like your artwork, your style, in this case, your art direction, really resonated with with the audience, and I think Voltron represents something that's multi-generational. I mean, it's old school, but it's new school at the same time, and that just goes to show your subtle updates. Just basically like you're saying, bringing a little bit of I'm going to say a little bit of an ethnic flavor, a little bit of a diversity. It kind of just, without going over the top, it actually made it feel a little bit more, I guess, inclusive, but not heavy-handed. It wasn't like something that was, I had to say that it was appreciated to see just the subtlety, but yet the updates, the subtle updates that you brought to the show. So kudos to you. Just really, really cool.
Man. I mean, thanks. It was really important to us, and not just to me. I mean, to Bob and Jeremy, everybody at Worldwide Biggies who were production thing. When we started talking about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The three principal characters, we want them to represent Earth a little bit more. So Daniel is clearly Asian. I can't think of the other guy's name, but he's African American.
Right.
Allura nieces, she's from Eris. So our idea was, well, we have these three principal panels, or these two planets rather, are being represented, but they're not really being represented because it's a bunch of white guys at first. So the idea was to kind of spread that a little bit.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was a nice update without, like I said, being so heavy-handed. There was a reasoning behind certain things. It wasn't like hey, let's just do it for the heck of it. When you put it in the context, like this is from a different planet. I mean, they're from a different planet. They're from a different planet. Then it kind of makes sense, in terms of how you were able to like weave those things in there. Yeah, so really, really cool.
I'll tell you one neat little thing, just if you're a Voltron fan. So the original Castle of Eris, the original Voltron castle, it looked like a traditional castle as was the 80s. So we took that and we made that the top of our castle. So we built another high-tech castle, and then the very top of it is actually the Eris castle. A lot of people didn't notice that, but I was going, that's actually where we built a castle under it, and we raised it. So that was the idea that but other people took them a long time to get going. I missed the original Castle Eris. I'm going, it's right there. It's literally right on top. So
yes, that's a fun fact here. You heard it here. I think people will enjoy that little bit of trivia there, that you can put on there. It's you paying homage or respect to the old castle and modernizing it and actually putting it in there.
Oh, yeah,
very, very cool. So now I'm going to go to. Yeah, this is artwork that you sent me. So there's going to be a personal message, I'm sure, that's attached to a lot 100%. Of this artwork. So let's just briefly go through this, and you can just I'm going to give the mic back to you. Just tell me why, what these I take it these represent kind of like milestones or like significant things in your career. So let's I'll give it back to you. Okay, here you go.
Okay. So this JLA cover is kind of a cool one. Howard Porter was drawing Justice League or JLA with Grant Morrison writing it. I mean, the industry was raving about this comic and how amazing it was. But Howard was under incredible pressure to, not only get the comics out, because he draws very intricately. So it took for him to do those things. So he was falling a little behind on the covers. Not anything detrimental, but I got reached out to at the time and said, everybody here really likes the constructions that you're doing for your covers and stuff like that, because I was doing a lot of them with Adventures of the DCU. So they said, would you mind doing just some sketches, and just to kind of give some points of view that where you want to go. So I drew this one, and Howard literally inked over it, and he actually gave me a credit on Delaney first, which is really nice and not something I was expecting, just to do a rough. And Howard was just going to do his drawing on it. But he basically took the wonderful, or this loose sketch and this wonderful drawing, and it became this one of the biggest books that was out there. My name was on the cover. I was like losing my unreal.
Awesome.
And there were T-shirts of it everywhere, and I was going, "This is crazy, right?" I was so stoked. So then years later, it got used on a bunch of the omnibus and some stuff, so it was always out there. And every time at Comic-Con, I must admit I bought T-shirts, so I'd be wearing one, feeling all rock star. And then Disney did their version, and they did it on homage to
Isn't that
this wonderful homage, because it came around full circle for me. My first cover in the DC universe was an homage to Alex Ross's Kingdom Come. So we were doing an homage there. So then when Disney did an homage to me doing an homage to that, I thought that was kind of neat. So I wanted to send that. So.
I'm gonna have to say it's like a lot of homage love going back and forth between you, Disney, DC. Yeah. It's just amazing. Great story. And then I have this panel here, and I know we've already got the hint that Superman is very near and dear to you. But let's talk about this particular panel here that you sent me.
Oh yes. Well, I wanted to show two things with this one, because you'll notice the next panel shows it colored, and I wanted the brilliance of John Cleese's colors, because a lot of times people will go very candy coat, especially when you're doing Superman. It's always bright colors and bright colors. And what I really, high contrast. What I really loved about what John Cleese did in this was he brought a beautiful subtlety. But so for me, Superman was always my guy. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I have a on my arm. This is actually from that same issue, Superman. And I I always wanted to do Superman. My job for Superman, for DC, was a Superman comic I ever wanted to do, but I wanted to do a deep dive into Superman. So John phoned me one day and he said, John, he says, David Michelini has written this amazing script, Superman vs. Lobo. It's a one shot, 50 pages. You get to draw tons of Superman. And I was going, you're kidding me. And Lobo? He's going, yeah. So I got
dream job
to draw Superman and Lobo. So, and then you look at John Cleese's colors, it's like in heaven. You can't even imagine. Even as I tell the story now, I get goosebumps. It was crazy. And I'm drawing Superman from and then they told me Mike Manley's going to ink it. And Mike Manley's one of my favorite inkers. He's amazing. Beautiful brush strokes. I mean, look at the work on this. And then you look at the colors that John Cleese brings in, which could have been that blown out, super color thing, but no, he's really subtle. He's got the warm plate going there. There's a little bit of light coming on faces. There's a beautiful interaction between the two characters. But what I loved about this page, particularly from David Michelini's writing, was the way I could play their body language. Basically, Lobo is hunched over, just slopping through this thing. Super little sophisticated. He's still the farm boy, putting his plate down. He's doing all the things, and that's not even in the script. He's just talking, but I'm going, I know exactly what Superman would look like this. He's using a fork and all that. Lobo's licking the pig, all that stuff. I just love the contrast between those two characters.
Yeah, and I picked up on that too. It's something that I think that maybe gets lost in the art of storytelling, is that, hey, maybe a script is given to an artist and it's say, hey, they're having a conversation, but maybe it doesn't talk about the subtleties in body language or just mannerism, the little idiosyncrasies that you're able to capture. Amazing. And it's just like it's a team effort. You talk about the inker and the colors that you were team supreme. You guys were put together, and much like Voltron, and then here you got this. There's 100 different ways you could actually color this, and I have to say that the coloring sets the mood, and it creates the atmosphere for this conversation. It almost has that little bit of that intergalactic campfire conversation type thing.
That's what's so cool. The concept of them, of them sitting kind of based on a rock, having this little fire moment. Both of them could jump off that rock and land, they'd be fine. And I love the precarious nature. There's, Lobo's rocket ship sitting there, Superman's kind of destroyed. And two guys, it's that old West campfire moment where they're having a conversation, complete dichotomy between the two of them. Right? Like Superman is still like, I'm trying to do this for the rest of the world. And Lobo's going, I'm trying to make money. I just love the nature of that. It's something you touched on that I want to just is that acting is such an important part of comic book work. And, a lot of times a writer, they're running from zombies and there's a whole bunch of zombies around them. And, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I got a huge page, but I got to draw a bunch of zombies. But the first thing I'm thinking is, what's the reaction? Are they scared or are they determined or all these things? And you start to think about the subtleties of how the body would react to that. If I'm running scared, I'm like this. But if I'm running determined, I'm like this. What am I doing with these characters? So I always think to myself from an acting standpoint, if they do this, what are they doing? So in case Lobo is clearly just being a slob. He's being so dismissive of everything Superman's saying. So he's just licking the plate. He's got no couth whatsoever. But Superman is ever the farm boy. He's been raised with good manners and that. So he's eating properly down. He does all those things. And that all just occurred to me as we're working on it, because I'm going, Superman would never be, or anything like that. He'd be, very sit upright, and Lobo, of course, would be just a slob, right? I dug that. So.
See, that's going the extra mile. I think that when you have a writer that gives you that flexibility, and then you also have that insight to I want to create that acting, that body language, just it enhances the story and it just makes it much more real, even though it's comic book. It's like, I think it's relatable, and it allows people to see the different personalities that you're portraying on the page. But just spectacular work. Let's keep on going here. I see this piece here, and this is Mr. Freeze, one of my all-time favorite Batman Rogues villains. But you have them in the snow globe, and let's talk about this.
Yeah. Sure. So this was kind of a cool one because again, these characters had not been designed. We were just seeing Captain Cold. They were talking about him in Justice League Unlimited, but you know, this was when Justice League book. So this was first season Justice League. So they it was just the top 7. So they hadn't done all the Rogue Gallery characters, you know. Yeah, a couple of them had been there. So there's like Captain Cold, the Icicle, Mr. Finn designed, but you know, the Yeti, Frost, all these characters, they really hadn't been designed. So all we did was we took the old Crisis on Infinite Earths, which George Perez had done, and I tried to put an animated version of those. And so I wanted to be very honoring. I really wanted another homage, I guess one could say, honoring George because of what he'd done and all those multiple characters. And you know, like for Killer Frost, I probably would have updated her costume more, but I was very, very into going, you know what, it'd be really cool to pay an homage to all the intricate work that he did in Infinite Earths. It rocked my world when I saw it the first time. So Captain Cold and all that, they're all sort of slight homages to what George Perez had done. And same thing with the Icicle. I pushed him a little bit more, maybe gave him a little bit bigger smile and that kind of thing. But I was very, very aware of the fact that since we were using these original designs, I wanted to pay homage to that and then also do them sort of in Bruce Timm.
Yeah, I have to say that this particular piece, you know, hearing the story behind it, it actually has much more of an impact on me, especially because we all, you know, I have to say that who isn't a fan of George Perez, and we all are rooting for him. He's going through you know, a very a tragic illness, but I think it's just made everybody just appreciate what an icon, what a influencer he was on so many of us. And I guess for you to go back, it's like, hey, you did this like a decade ago, like, and then knowing that you know, you infused the sensibilities of George Perez's designs, and you decide to keep that. I think that's awesome. You know, you can look back at this piece and say, "Hey, this one's for you, George." Just really, really cool.
That was kind of my thought about it, you know, at the time. You know, and I just, you know, I've met George on a couple of different occasions at Comic Cons, and he's just this wonderful, beautiful person. You know, just so much light, so much beautiful energy. I'll tell you a kind of cute little story. Phil Jimenez, great artist, and nothing but the greatest samurai. Phil, I follow him on Instagram. We've met a couple times. He's compared to George, you know, obviously George, a very, very big influence on him. So he draws in a very George Perez style. I'll say that Phil adds a lot more blacks to his work, you know, which I quite love. I love that it has a little bit more depth, where George keeps things a little cleaner. But other than that, you know, Phil will do all the multiple characters, will do all that stuff.
Oh,
and everybody in the industry for a long, long time went, "Oh, Phil Jimenez, he really wants to be George Perez." Well, I'm staying at a con in San Diego very early on in my career, and George Perez sees Phil Jimenez, and he runs over. There's George Perez in his Hawaiian shirt. And he runs over, "My son!" And it was just wonderful. Because they're just, you know, like, how do everybody feel about this radio? And like they're hugging, and I'm just going, "This is awesome." What makes our industry so
yeah, that is a great story. I mean, I'm about ready to tear up a little bit here because, you know, I can just see that in my mind. You know, George Perez is that kind of personality. He's always, every picture I've seen of him, he's always smiling, and the Hawaiian shirt, and he is just a towering guy. He's like super tall.
Big dude. He's a big dude.
Yeah. But I love that story. That's really great. So
wonderful.
Here we go. We're moving right along. I mean, this is, you know, you had mentioned that, you know, I have to say that, you know, I'm a Bruce Timm fan, and I have to say that it's interesting to hear about how, you know, some of the Justice League universe had kind of been established in terms of the look and style of it, but a lot of it hadn't. So it's so interesting to hear that you actually were the one who kind of dictated the looks of these characters that exist in that universe. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say dictated. I mean, it was collaborative. I really wanted to pay homage, and more than homage. I wanted it to look like it's fit in the world of Bruce Timm and what Bruce was doing. Have the greatest admiration. He's a wonderful guy. I've talked to him on a couple of occasions, and he's always encouraging. Very, very cool guy. So Jean Jones hadn't yet. So in this particular page, we see Jean Jones and Aquaman hadn't been designed yet. They were both basically currently looked in the DCU. So Adventures in the DC Universe was this weird amalgam, taking what was current so that kids who were seeing Adventures in the DC Universe could transition from that to the current comics. So again, Kyle Rayner being Green Lantern, John Jones is with the big beetle brow and all that kind of thing. That was intentional. We were definitely trying. So when Bruce and those guys started moving to a league and then creating, first thing they did was they removed Jean's ears because Jean's telepathic, really hearing things anyway. And I love that. I went, that's cool. That's really, so they did a lot of really neat things. But I hope that maybe little bits and pieces of what I was doing, played a part into it. I see a little bit of my design in Blue Beetle into the Blue Beetle stuff, and Captain Marvel, Shazam. Some of those kind of came out, but I'd never be so presumptuous as to think that it did. This particular was kind of fun in the fact that one of my very first DC comics, Steve Corte, and that's when I was just doing Batman and Robin, the movie, and outside did the licensing sticker book, and that we worked for Steve Corte. Wonderful dude. That's him talking to Superman in that panel. So I put Steve Corte in there because he was my editor. Yeah, that's the blonde guy talking to Superman. Yeah, and he signed autographs and stuff like that. Yeah, so Steve was wonderful. That's why I included this one, just because it was my very first sort of editor to work with, him and Charlie Kochman. And Charlie has appeared many, many times in comics as well by me. So I put Steve in there. So I want to show that one.
Yeah, and let me, I guess, clarify. Maybe dictated was a little bit of a too strong a word. I wanted to say what my intention was to say that, hey, your style was able to adapt into the Bruce Timm universe, and yet it had a John Delaney style to it that still, it allowed it to exist in that universe, but it was still uniquely John Delaney as well. And then you had some subtle touches in terms of just, being able to come up with characteristics that ended up being imparted on, the way that those characters were going to be animated well after that after your imprint on it. So I just think that's amazing, because I think that's it's good when you get the blessing of an artist that you admire and say, hey, it looks like it belongs in the universe. It looks like it has the style, but it's you, too. So I think it's like you being able to grow the character, and I think that's awesome. So here we have.
Agree. It's very absurd on your part. I also would say one more thing too. Bruce he understood when he was doing Mad Love that he could do certain things with the characters he could never do in animation. He could add a shadow that might have some feathering. He could never do in animation. Add in expressions that would just never be able to pull off in animation, would look goofy, but go out and do these things. So I really got inspired by that. And so I didn't think to myself, okay, well, Aquaman's hair have lines, because you wouldn't do that in animation. That's true, you wouldn't. My own experience in animation, that'd be a lot to animate. So you would keep it simple. But because it was a graphic novel and because it was a comic book, we could expand beyond what that was. And Bruce picked up on that right away when we were in. He said, I love that you're doing that. He said, cool. He said, why not? They're in a static pose. Make it as dynamic as you possibly can. Add those little things, the ripples to the cape that we just can't do. So that was really cool. He kind of gave me the impetus to keep going a little bit further on that.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool, because just when I've been looking at your artwork, it's like you are given a task and you accomplish that task, but you push it a little bit further. You add that extra human touch, the extra action, that extra foreshortening to make it look more lively and coming at you. So that's really cool. So you sent me also this particular piece. This was the Superman Last Son of Krypton here. So you want to talk a little bit about this particular piece?
Sure. So whenever I did the kids' books and stuff, I always took such great pride in it. I'm a dad myself and that sort of thing. So when you can actually do something that you can read and that, it's wonderful. Really, really fun one. And the fact that I got a chance to I got a chance to ink it. I got a chance to color most of it. The interior stuff was colored by somebody else. The cover, I got to do the entire cover, paint it in digital paints. And I did something here that I just sort of felt was kind of cool. I've never seen it, was make the S come out of the rocket ship. Very first thing as he's flying out. I still use the original the actual, and I thought, well, that's cool that I have Krypton exploding behind it.
That is so brilliant. And you know what? It is done so it's done with such precision that subtlety. I was looking at I was looking at it, and now I see it, and it's even more like it has much more impact on me now. And I think it's because when you can do something that is not like like so on the head, like, you know, it's so obvious.
Yeah, I didn't want
You
to
know,
be didactic. I didn't want to be a perfect. You
yeah.
know, it's,
Uh,
yeah.
but
Understand.
yeah, and that's where it shows that it's a much more meaningful piece, because, you know, you're able to work that in without being so, you know, overt. And I think that's brilliant. And I
Thanks.
think this is like another example.
Thanks.
This is testament, I think, to your, you know, just the multiple hats that you've worn in the industry, that you're able to take, you know, graphic design, animation, you know, composition from a static standpoint in a comic, like just right here, and able to incorporate all these things. You know, when I look at this, it just makes sense. You know, it feels right. And, you know, it's like when you look at artwork that doesn't pay attention to composition, or everything is so heavy handed, it just looks unbalanced and it doesn't feel right. But when you look at this, it just works. And I think this is a perfect example. Even just the typography, having the last son of Krypton, you know, and knowing that you did this from, you know, pencils to inks to colors, that just goes to show you had complete control in terms of what you wanted to do. Just brilliant stuff. So I'm going to keep on going here. We have some you have some adventures in DC Comics here, covers. Yeah, you want to talk about this?
Sure, yeah. The first one is Shazam, I believe. Correct? Yeah, there we go. So one of the things that was super cool for me about the original C.C. Beck Marvel is the squinty eyes, the big brow, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I understand when you're animating a character like that, that's tougher, you know, because you want the expression. When you're doing a comic book, much more graphic figure, and that's how C.C. Beck designed him. He was supposed to look like a Fred McMurray, so he always had the squinty eyes. So I was able to design Captain Marvel like that. Same thing with his sister and Freddie. But one of the things that really occurred to me for the cover was, I remember all those sort of old propaganda Russian posters, you know, like this, very of the 1930s, 1940s kind of thing.
Yep.
And auto binder and PC Beck came up with Captain Marvel, and I thought there's a real opportunity to do something here that pays direct homage to the period of time that he came out, and also draw him in that real classic CC Beck style. So I was able to do that, turning up, you know, they sort of like, we're all in this together kind of thing with the lightning bolt. So I was really pleased with the way that one turned out because of that.
Yeah, and it's like it's a spin on that Russian propaganda, and you making it like positive DC like messaging here. So it's just really it's more inspiring, and you know, the Shazam character, just you know, just the whole family. It's a very just much like Superman. It's very hopeful and inspiring and uplifting. Just really cool stuff here.
Looking to
the exactly. So here we have another cover here. Would you like to talk about this one?
Yeah. Sure. So this is the 12th Adventures in the DC Universe, and Steve Vance in the series, and we had talked very early on about having a recurring character that sat in the background, this character Cypher, that nobody knew who it was until this final episode. The only thing we'd ever seen was his mechanical hand, kind of like Dr. Claw in Inspector Gadget. You just only saw that hand. So I'm thinking to myself, how do we do a cover here that kind of shows that? And it was Steve, the writer, who said, you know, I'd really love it if it was a hand holding the hero. So he sent me a little rough sketch. You know, it was just, you know, kind of rough, but I thought, oh, that's so inspired, and it looks like that classic 70s Justice League cover where they're all sort of thing, right? So I was thinking, okay, this is great, and I'm super pleased with it, and I just love the way it all turned out. Everybody's complimenting me on it, and I realized I left out the Flash. I was so bummed.
Well, you know what? The Flash is moving so fast you can't see him. He's actually there. I'm gonna give you cover for that one. So
Thank you for that. He's whipping around trying to free them.
Yes, exactly. And you know, it's brilliant because, you know, this particular I guess this composition could be considered, like, I've seen some similar ones. Some people could say it could be considered cliche or whatever, but you like all of your art pieces, it's not cliche because you put your own touch on it. You know, kind of funny play on words here. You put your own touch on it, and it's a big gigantic hand. But but it's just really
I'll say
good.
one thing. Thanks. I'll say one thing about it that now I'm seeing it after all this time. I remember thinking this, but I hadn't remembered thinking this until we saw it again. I hated the way that a lot of the early Justice League stuff, and this was just period, reflection of the time. It has nothing to do with any particular artist or ideology. But Wonder Woman, I think she was in peril always, right? You know, she's always.
Oh,
yeah. So I really wanted to show Wonder Woman in the arms, like kind of she's saving Batman and Superman. You know, that was, you know, it's when I got you guys, kind of thing. Opening the hands. So I love that part. Just seeing it again, I remember thinking that, oh yeah, not in peril. She's kicking ass.
Yeah, and I think that's you know, you did this you know, what year was this? This was done I know it says a very
97
classic
or something.
97. It's like, I'm going to say that you are a prophet because, you know, obviously you know, with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, she's definitely not a pushover, and she's more than willing to throw down with the big boys. And I think that that's like, you were like showing that type of Wonder Woman empowerment back in the 90s. And so very,
I love,
you know, very cool.
One of my favorites. Never saw her as anything other than an Amazon. You know, when I draw her at pipes, I give her arms, I make her tall. When she's standing next to Batman, she's just a little bit taller. That. I noticed they followed suit on that too, which was cool. I love that she's just a little bit taller. I never, and I love when Gal Gadot got, she's 6 feet tall already, and they give her a little lift on the boots. So when she's walking around, you know, next to Henry Cavill, she's like almost. I freaking love that, man. I just think
see,
they're Amazons, you know.
Yeah, that's the subtlety that you've been able to put. I'm going to use that word now. You know, epic is used to describe your work, and now subtlety, epic subtlety. I'm going to put it in that way. But you know, let's okay. So here we go.
Keep moving on.
Yeah, and then
so
we were
this
talking
is
about
speaking of George Perez.
George Perez. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
so
you did
George
this.
Obviously is, you know, one of the guys. So then I did my homage to it. So when they were talking about, so this is actually a really cool thing. So when I got nominated for my first Eisner, it was for the comic, which was the Death of Comic Book, or the comic book guy. Ian Boothby and I have known each other for years. Ian's at Vancouver as well, and we were working together on this. And our editor, Nathan Kane at the time, put us together to do this. And they wanted me to do a series of comic book covers that were based on famous comic book covers. Well, this was perfect for me. The original George Perez one. Can we sit back to that one really quick?
Let me zoom in. Hold on a second. There we go.
You bet. So on the George Perez one, he actually, of course, master that he is, draws every single character in the background from the DCU. All watching this and all forlorn. On the bottom piece, you'll see Batman being, you know, consoling Wonder Woman, and, you know, all this stuff that's going on. That all was replicated by me on the Homer Simpson with Simpsons characters. So you'll see Ned Flanders is Marge, while Homer is, you know, holding up comic guy. So I was so fanatical about trying to capture everything that you've done that. So everything in my mind has exactly, to zoom in, you'll see everybody. And I realized there's no way Homer would be a good guy, so I gave him the bullies. So you see Ned Flanders is holding Marge. And all the other characters, they all hold the exact same space that George did in the other ones. I gave him the same lighting, I gave him the positioning, everything. And so I had to draw every Simpsons character. It was absolutely insane on my part to do this, but I had to do it because I wanted it to be an homage to what George had done. So so if you actually get a really clear cover, everybody's there.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I have to tell you, shoot, now that, you know, when we compare, you know, you're giving me, this is the brilliance of like having a guest like you on the shows, because we're getting that little bit of additional insight that goes into creating a cover. And especially when you're doing an homage, you know, it's that attention to detail that you're able to put on the piece, and drawing every Simpson character in the background. And it's not like you're just throwing them in there arbitrarily. You know, the whole Ned Flanders and Marge, you know, paralleling Batman and Wonder Woman, just amazing. It's just really neat to see that attention to detail. So, and it's done with the John Delaney humor, you know, just really good. So,
I'd like to give a shout out to Andrew Papoy on this. We worked together on a lot of different projects. He inked, and I remember sending it to him. And Andrew insisted that when these things got sent to him, that they were at 600 DPI and as big as they could make them, so you could lay in all these beautiful brushwork. And that guy put all to it, and he did every one of those things. That's all him is inks on top of pencil. So it's one thing to draw it, it's another thing to have to ink it and go through all that thing. And he did just a phenomenal job. So that was a real treat.
He killed it. It's just really brilliant work. Now we showed some black and white. I showed a black and white part of this, but now to see it in color, yeah, you want to talk about this? This is more adventures in the DC universe.
Sure. Alrighty. What are we looking at? Oh yeah, so this is cool. This is the final issue. So I want to put it as the way it, that was a heartbreaker because we had plans to do a stock story, which I was super excited about doing. Nice World War II. I hadn't done something like that in Adventures, and we had plans to do an Adam Strange story. So there was a lot of stuff we were going to be doing that we were very excited about. But unfortunately, here's the irony: we were selling 30,000 copies by the end. Which would be a #1 book today. About 30,000 copies.
No!
That's just like selling a million. Yeah. Hey, that would be a #1 book, but we got canceled, so it happens. But anyway, so the final cover was going to be Wonder Woman and Catwoman, which was really, really cool. A chance to put them all sort of battle armored up and beat up and cut up. And Catwoman had redesigned for the new Batman the Animated Series, so I gave her the original new design. Wonder Woman had not come out yet, so I was still drawing her sort of a bit of an homage to what Alex Ross had done with the chest plate, putting it and things like that, making the headband a little bit bigger. So I was playing a lot of those kind of things, but it also got me a chance to draw two characters, which because I love strong women, and Wonder Woman and Catwoman are strong on the opposite ends of the scale. Catwoman has such wile and such guile and strength and of character and knows exactly what it is. And Wonder Woman has all this power, but also has a lot of self-doubt. And she's always trying to do the right thing for everybody. And I love being able to position these two who both also carry kind of lassos or whips and, sort of show those in interactions. Wonderful way of just finishing this series and, on two of my favorite characters. So it was a great time.
That was excellent composition. And you know what? I'm going to... because we need to get into the live drawing part of it, but I wanted to just show more of this artwork. And what I'm going to do is when I show this, you let me know. We'll get insight into one more of these pieces that you sent me, and I'm going to let you pick it. I'm going to just show this. Yeah. Okay, so we have a Futurama, which I want to say that you work. I've seen a lot of your sketches on there. Obviously did some phenomenal work interpreting Futurama. Then we also more of Futurama, and then I believe there's a story about the great John Byrne, I think, that you want to talk about.
Sure. We'll get to the Dr. Fate one. Yeah. That.
Okay. So let's talk.
Black and white.
Black and white. I don't know if I have that.
This is cool. I'll stop on this one. This is the first poster I ever got for DC. So they said, we want you to do a Justice League poster. And I immediately thought of the Parademons and Superman and Darkseid. So this is who the Justice League lineup was at the time. Again, Kyle, Wally, Captain Martian Manhunter, Steel. So I put them all in there. But what I wanted to show about this, which is so freaking cool, is this is Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's Darkman, it's the Parademons.
Yes, it is.
This is awesome. Almost 30 years ago, I did this one. And there was Wonder Woman beating up on a Parademon.
Yes,
it was just one of those things where I just went, "Oh my gosh, that's cool."
Yeah. I'm gonna have to say that. I guess beside, like I just said, we did epic, subtlety, and I'm gonna say prophetic. A lot of your artwork that you did in the past, it's actually resurging, and it's actually being used in a lot of things. So I'm gonna have to probably do a deep dive and look at some of your other old artwork to see if you were the Nostradamus of DC storytelling. Maybe they're gonna they're gonna rip up some.
So many
I think it's really cool. I think they're gonna.
It's bound to seem like profit. The Simpsons get that a lot too. They say, "Oh my God, they prophesize things." I've been working on that show in the comics for years. There's nothing profit about it. You're just sort of following the zeitgeist, and of course, these things gotta happen. But I don't think I'm the only one who was digging the Justice League. Apocalypse and Darkseid, but seeing all that show up in Zack Snyder and just remembering that moment when I went back to that poster, I went, "Oh gosh, that's so cool!" Superman shooting his eye beams at Darkseid and Darkseid shooting his Omega Blast.
It's got to be fun to look at your older art and see how it that coincidentally it parallels some of the pop culture things that are going on in the movies. But so anyway, I think this is a great segue because we just finished an hour just because I don't even think there's an hour is enough to talk about all the things that that you've accomplished, and I could really just, like I said, do a deep dive into some of your artwork and some of the beauty that you put into the line work and the positive negative things. But the best way to actually I guess rather than talking about it is actually to show it. And the part of let it out, so let it out is one of the cool things about our draw and talk interview is that we actually do a live drawing component. And so for our first live drawing that we're going to do is John's brother, Kal-El. We're going to go with Superman. And Superman, we've already heard a little bits and pieces about how Superman has influenced John and has been has really been, I don't know, an inspiration, an icon, somebody who's really reading his stories, how it's encouraged you. And so we're just going to use this moment to actually draw Superman and maybe hear a little bit about what he means to you further, enough that you're willing to put ink on your own arm, your drawing arm, of Superman. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 15 minutes to draw Superman. And just like with all of our Let It Out drawing challenges, we encourage our audience to draw along with us. And if you do, just let me know in a comment field that you are drawing it, and then post it to our sister page, which is the Art Show on Facebook. So you need to do two things. You need to let me know in the comments, and then post it to the Art Show on Facebook. So that way I can pull it up and we can share that to with John, and we can get a little bit of his insight into your drawing. So I encourage everybody to draw along with us. So I'm going to add everybody knows who Superman is and what his style. He has many different looks through the ages. You can go an animated style, you can do a more realistic style, you can do the Zack Snyder style. So anybody can do their own interpretation of Superman. So the door is wide open in terms of your interpretation for that. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to unshare this, and I'm going to add John's camera, which is his art cam, to the live stream. So we're going to do 15 minutes, and we're going to start right now. And John, I'm going to hand the mic over to you, and I'm going to leave it up to you. Right. You can talk about your design choices or your art choices, or you can just talk about what Superman means to you. You can do both. It's up to you. But I'm gonna over this 15 minutes, I want to be able to show the magic happen on screen, but I also want to hear what Superman means to you. So, the mic is in your 100%. Hands.
Thank you, brother. Well, first of all, ironically, I put my glasses on to draw Superman. Not.
You are Clark Kent now.
Yeah, I've become Clark Kent when I'm drawing Superman. So one of the first things you'll notice about what I was doing there is I'm sketching out the proportion. One of the things that a lot of young artists, when they first getting started they'll, draw stuff like, I want to draw a face. So they start drawing an eye, or something like that. And that's just the worst way to draw, because you want to be able to focus on the entire form first. So we were talking earlier about animation, about how you learn to draw in shapes and figure, and then you put the detail in later. Very, very important as an artist that you learn to do that. So the first thing I was doing is just drawing in these loose shapes, kind of figure out the actual design of Superman, right? So I wanted that his head is proportionally with his shoulders. So I'll use the barbell principle, which we call it drawing two barbells, and we draw a line across so that they're on the same plane. So therefore he has balance in his shoulders, building up a bit of the shape. I put the lines on where his eyes are going to go, so I know exactly where Superman's head is going to be shaped and placed. And so then when I want to go to the next layer where I'm actually starting to clean them up, I'll take the roughs and I'll bring them down a little bit so they're just into a lighter color. And then I'll start adding in some of the details. But you'll notice that immediately I can add in the details because I know where they line up, because I've actually given myself that information. One of the most important things you can learn as an artist whenever you're drawing is the more information you can give yourself before you actually start putting in details, the more drawing is going to be. So as I'm doing this, as you can see, I can go very quickly because of the fact that, first of all, I've been working in animation forever, but also so well that, it's drawing him. It's very, very second nature for me. It's like a little slight grin on Kal-El because he's always very happy to be doing what he's doing. Now, you'll notice that the hair is always on top. I'm going to actually do something here. My Cintiq lately has been acting up on a little bit, so I'm just going to lower the actual frame a little bit here, because that's not affecting you guys too much. Sorry. Just notice the, you know what I'll do, actually. Just one sec, guys. All right. So see, as I get up into here, it gets a little wobbly, so I'm just going to move them down on the page a little bit, which nice thing about this is I can do that. That's the nice thing about it all around. So I'm going to just erase a little bit of that hair because it got a little wobbly on me. But one of the most important things, too, for a young artist starting out is understanding hair is not part of the head. It sits on top of the head. We have all these things, but, you know, as if they're a continuance, they're not. It sits on top of the head. So once you think that through and once you've got that kind of ironed out, then you can understand that it looks a lot more effective when it's sitting on top of the head rather than as an extension of the head. Mm-hmm. It's a standard and pretty common a lot of young artists make. You know, they want to draw the hair as if it's reflective, you know, on the of the head, and it is. But if you draw as an independent thing, it's a much more effective way of doing it. So we can do this. Now I can slide this back up again. Same thing with the details. You know, there's lots of ways to draw a cape and the wrinkles and the stuff like that. But if you've got a good solid foundation under it, everything just becomes a lot easier. You can see exactly where the chest rolls like this, shoulders, curve around. There's a thing in animation called straight line to a curve. And what that does is it gives a tremendous sense of weight to a line. So if I'm doing a curved line here, it's nice to have a straight line. Contrasting, right? This is a big part of the Bruce Timm style of drawing too, is he loves the straight line to a curve. If you're actually watching Bruce draw, say, an arm, here's the arm here. By this arm is straight, then this part will come here, and that's straight. Straight line to a curve plays so big that animation does, because it adds a sense of weight that it's difficult to get in a single drawing. But in animation, we use it as by using straight line to a curve. It really helps to sort of some weight to the drawing that you probably wouldn't normally have. As you can see, I've been drawing the Superman symbol all my life. So I know
you can do it. You can do it with your eyes closed, right?
100%, brother. This is a very, very comfortable spot for me. I'm going to lower that down a little bit again because we're getting a little bit of pushback from my computer. So another thing that Bruce does that is really, really, really cool is he understands how light plays into blacks. So Superman's got black, a nice highlight, and he's using sort of not just a squiggle, but a squiggle that complements each other. So you'll see he doesn't just draw one line. It's got weight in it itself. The white line itself even has weight, and you can do that by using your actual blacks. So by doing so in that. Now if I remove the, here, one second, I'll move this up a little bit first. Oops-a-daisy. Now, when I remove the lines, you've got a nice cleaned up drawing of Superman. And now I can actually do things like this, which are kind of fun to do. As you can see, work digitally is the cat's meow, because you can add in all this stuff. Things like shadows, depth, really, really quickly. Now, the reason the soups means so much to me is very simple. I grew up like everybody else thinking Batman was the guy. He's, you know, he's human and he's trained himself to the ultimate perfection, take revenge on any other criminal who could possibly, you know, put another child in this kind of harm that the criminal that took his parents put him in. I love it. Everybody loves a revenge fantasy. Dig it. But as I got older and I had a child, I started to realize that there are things you want to teach your children beyond revenge that become, you know, maybe an idea of hope or an idea of helping one another, even though you don't have to. Superman represents that. Here's a guy who goes to work every day and takes crap from a boss just so he can be close to the news services so he can go and help. I mean, he doesn't need to. He could take over the world if he wanted. He could be a basketball star, make millions of dollars. He could be a movie. He could do anything with his powers, and he chooses to take crap every single day just so he can help. And I love that. People always say, Batman's more relatable because he's a human being. Superman's got a boss. Batman's got a butler. How relatable is Batman, really?
Good point. Good point.
So there's Superman, and done quickly.
Oh shoot, you're done
because
already?
of the fact. Yeah, man.
Well, you got. I'm actually still sketching, and I need to make the leap to digital. But hey, since you still got 7.5 minutes, I don't know if you want to go ahead and maybe put some loose colors in there. And I'm resisting.
I was actually I'll draw them in another style. I'll draw them in another style.
Please do. Please do.
Okay, cool. So I'll draw you something a little closer to the way I would normally draw Superman.
Yeah. That's I love this. I love the story and how your idea of why people like Batman and why people like Superman, and it's okay to like both.
Yeah.
But I think that it's kind of neat when your decision has kind of grown or changed with time and age, in terms of your ideas of who Superman is and what he represents. And I think that's it's beautiful. You're allowed to make your change. There's still love for
Absolutely.
Batman. I think you still like Batman, but Superman has a different meaning to you at this this stage of your life. So
Absolutely.
what kind of style?
Me a little bit.
Yeah. So what style are you thinking about doing this time? Are you going for a more realistic style, or
I'm doing a little more realistic, realistic where there's a little, not trying to make them as animated. I still like a clean line. I'm still a big Chow fan. There's so many great artists in that, but I not overly render things either. But I wanted to a little bit more anatomy into his face and that sort of thing, so I can kind of give you an idea of how, if I'm drawing Superman, I have a tendency to make him a little bit more physical rather than it simple. There's a term we use in animation called amplification through simplification, and sometimes that obviously in animation that works, but sometimes when you're drawing him as a graphic character, it's nice to detail and just sort of let you feel him out a little bit better. So do that with this one here.
Cool. So we're getting a bonus today. We're actually getting 2 Superman drawings from John. And you know what? I always have to go back and watch the video on demand because I'm drawing along with him and I'm just trying to keep up to do 1 drawing, and here John is doing 2. So
well, again, keep in mind I've been doing this a long time, and when you draw an animation, you draw 25 drawings for a single second of movement.
Right.
So you would be a lot more economic and understand how the drawing is worth continuing on or just moving on. So, I'm not exactly drawing Superman the way before. I've certainly done this one before. So.
All right, so let's talk about your favorite interpretations of Superman. If you had to pick five, if you had to pick 5 artists, contemporary or in the past that did versions of Superman, who would they be?
Okay, I love Man right now. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He drew Heroes in Crisis. Yeah, I love him. I love the way he draws Superman. I just love the looks like sort of packed into a suit, but he's not at the gym every day. He's a brawler and he's strong and powerful, and I freaking love that. That's a big influence on me in the last little while, where rather than making him an anatomy lesson, he's this guy who happens to fulfill the suit because he's just he's built that way, right? Love that. Love the early Superman stuff. Great artist out of Toronto, and just again brought such a sensitivity to Superman and the poses and the way he flew. A lot of guys, always fully jacked, arms out, that kind of thing. And Stuart would sometimes draw him as if his arms were off to his side. He was just really enjoying flying. His arms are back, and the cape is whipping around. And I think we have a tendency to take for granted the fact that fly.
Yes.
And you go, well, wait a minute, he would love that. It would be So I love the way someone kind of caught that. Yeah, I love Frank Quitely's stuff in All-Star Superman. I thought he just did such a beautiful job of rendering those subtle expressions when Superman's becoming so omnipotent because he's just irradiated with all the solar energy. So behaving in a different way, and he does so many things. He also did something wonderful with Clark Kent, which was, when you're a guy who works out and you're pretty built, you're a big dude. But if you aren't flexing all the time and you're not holding it in, you can look a little scary. You can look just like a big, kind of thick farm boy. And that's how he drew him. drew smart guy instead of weak guy. He drew this big, thick guy, and I went, "That's cool. I love that." Kind of probably it made sense for the clumsiness. Yeah, love that. That was.
Did
cool.
we hit 5?
You can't love Superman without loving Joker.
Ah, yes, yes. I was just gonna say if we had hit 5 yet, but but keep on going. Yeah, talk about this.
Schuster's my guy because obviously there's a couple of reasons that I love Joel Schuster so much, but one of them is that he's Canadian. They always talk about the two kids in Cleveland. Yeah, Joe Schuster up in Canada, they were cousins, and he moved to Cleveland, stayed for a little while with the Seagulls. He's Canadian, and actually, Canada not that long ago did a stamp with Superman on it because Superman is also part Canadian. So it's kind of cool.
New trivia there. And
a little trivia tickler there for you. Yeah. A lot of people don't.
I'm gonna have to say, I'm gonna add one more to your list because I agree with every artist that you mentioned. I have the same respect for their all their interpretations, but I'm gonna add one more to that. I'm gonna add Alex Ross because I remember
we were
talking.
You said that you were gonna say him. Yeah.
Because I have to remember back in the late 90s, or actually it was the early 90s when Kingdom Come came out, and we were seeing like an older version of Superman, and people would have to say that Superman's been around for quite a while, but I like they gave him gray. They actually put a black, Alex Ross put that black replaced the black or the yellow with black in the logo, and those subtle changes just made such an impact. And I think that he's actually one of my I guess favorite interpretations of Superman as well.
Oh, I agree. I think Alex Ross is one of the most remarkable athletes. I've had the good fortune of meeting him, and he's wonderfully humble and kind and very artist. And he's just phenomenal. The black in the Superman S, back to the early Superman days when Joe Schuster did it originally, and then they replaced it because a corporate logo. But that's Alex's whole thing. He always likes to kind of go back to what it was originally designed to be. So Frank Miller, when he did Dark Knight Returns, so with the yellow circle, because that's how Batman was. But the first moment he got when that thing got shot up was to go back to the original Bob Kane design, where it's just a black bat, is what we see all the time now. So it's really, really cool when the artist, I'm looking back to the original, and I want to celebrate that. So here's my more realistic Superman without the lines in there.
You are so great. Yeah, so fast. And you just banged it out on time. This is another thing about you. It's like you're so punctual. Here we have 15 minutes just expired, and you nailed it. Yeah, so let's go to both. Let's look at both of them. So let's go to your first one, and I'm going to solo that out and get everybody to let everybody have an opportunity to see the first drawing first, and let everybody just take it in.
Or you want me to go back to the first one? Okay.
Yeah, let's go. If you have it still.
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah. Okay. There he is.
All right.
So
I'm
more of the animation.
Yeah, so I soloed out. You want to zoom in a little bit?
Sure, if you like. Yeah, I can totally do that.
And I really like how you kind of gave like a little bit of a composition lesson when you were talking about breaking it down, how to do that. It's just, and it's so neat that you're just using subtle grays here just to add depth. And you're every line to me, I look at this as it's 100% intentional. No wasted lines.
Thanks, yeah, intention is you don't want to waste time with drawing a bunch of rendered lines. It's a pretty standard thing that a lot of young artists make the mistake of saying, if I render this with a bunch of different lines, I'll improve the artwork. There's a great line in that Ollie Johnson says in The Illusion of Life, which is the book on Disney. And he said, fancy rendering at a later date will not save poor original conception.
Oh, that's a great quote. And you know what? I need to listen to that because I'm famous for putting too many lines into things. It's
you can't. If you've drawn something bad, you've drawn something bad. You can maybe make it look a little prettier, but it's still a bad drawing. So the most important thing that you can do for yourself is going, Yeah, I didn't nail that, or I didn't do that right. When I'm teaching, I taught at Capilano University for 15 years. I would always say one of my favorite sounds in animation is the sound of crumpling paper, because it said, yeah, I didn't do that well, and I got rid of it, right? There's also another great line from Ollie Johnson where he says, love every drawing, but don't fall in love with every drawing. You know, when you fall in love with a drawing, all of a sudden you're doing yourself a disservice because you're saying, I can't do better. Of course you can. Of course
you are filled with all sorts of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom that I'm going to just take. Let's look at the second. Let's look at the second one here. Now, this you mentioned this was a more realistic, and I like that. So if we can zoom in a little bit, and you can talk a little bit more about this approach.
Okay, so anatomically, his face is much more defined. I'm using a little bit of a Christopher Reeve here, kind of nose, a bit of a Henry Cavill eyes. I like to combine a lot of the different sort of things. Henry Cavill's a little shorter in the chin, which I kind of dig, so it sticks out a bit like that. So I'm playing around with a little bit of that. But yeah, most of it is just sort of based on, you know, the steely, cool eyes of Christopher Reeve and that straight Roman nose he always had, that way the hair slicked back. I love the way John Byrne drew the curl that it actually came out of his hair kind of swooping. So I do that a lot with, you know, I love that instead of it just being, oh, I put a spit curl together. I actually did that before I left. That's silly. But his hair would fall into a curl like that, which I always loved. John Byrne did that. So I did that.
It looks great. And this just shows also just you're able to just adapt and adopt like different styles. And
it's really important, you know what I mean. Now you can be a jack of all trades, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a master of one. You can have that one that you go, yeah, this is what people know from me, and this is what. But the more that you as an artist challenge yourself, you as an artist tell yourself that it's way more important that I expand beyond what I do. It's the greatest gift you can give to yourself as an artist. I say this to young artists all the time. They'll say, well, that's not my style. I go, you're actually doing yourself such a disservice by saying I have a style. You can have a style, but you should be able to broaden beyond it. Clay Mann definitely has a style. Jack Kirby definitely has a style. But if you look at and you do some deep dive on those guys' work, you can see the way that they move through all kinds of different styles. Look at Picasso. We're all familiar with his Dadaism.
Yes.
But you look at his blue period, and these are fully rendered individuals, you know, completely captured in a sense of realism that exists completely beyond his Dadaism period.
Exactly.
And I think the most important thing you can do as an artist is to challenge yourself and say, I don't live by this one drawing. I live beyond those drawings. And now I can actually do a bunch of different things. So if I'm going to get hired to go work on Voltron Force, it's only because of the fact that I know that I can draw that as well as draw Chaotic, as well as draw Batman animated series, as well as draw The Simpsons. I never have a problem getting work because of the fact that people know I can do those things. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Preach, brother. Those are great words. And you know, I'm a big fan. You mentioned Picasso. Picasso is a great example because most people don't know that Picasso was a great if you look at his early works when he was a student, he could have been a Renaissance artist. He does some incredible realism, like hyper realism that looks.
I love his blue period. His blue period is absolutely phenomenal. It's just mind blowing, right? I mean, even look at Toulouse-Lautrec. Toulouse-Lautrec could do beautiful, you know, fully rendered can girl paintings where you're just going, and he's doing this with like gouache on a piece of paper, like it's just crazy.
I know.
And then he would do something super stylized where guys are still ripping them off today. You know, trying to get like that kind of look, you know, of how he stylizes a cat or how he would make a railway kind of whip around and do all these neat things. Going, this guy was doing this hundreds of years ago before they even, you know, like when they were printing his posters, he said, I mix the paints, I'll mix the inks. He was the first guy to mix inks in a printing press. Like, you know, because he had to, you know, he had to. He wasn't going to accept anything less, right? So.
Yeah, so we're getting a little bit of art history here. This just goes to show again that John is also he studies the masters in fine art as well. But it looks like we didn't get anybody.
Come on.
I just want to say that just shows that you appreciate all forms of art. But I was looking at the art show page, and in the comments, it doesn't look like anybody drew along with Superman with us. But I want to let everybody know that if you want to still draw Superman and share that with us, you can do that. Just let me know in the comments field, and we'll show that later on in the show. Before we go to our next drawing challenge, I'm just gonna take a moment to show what I did, and I'm gonna have to say that I'm probably a little bit more cliche when I did my version of Superman. So here we go, and I have not mastered the
I love it.
I can't do the clean lines. Thank you so much. I can't do the clean lines like you. I have been trying to reduce the number of lines. I like to do. It's like I rather than erase and refine, I actually just keep on putting more layers on top of it. And I need to learn to be more deliberate, like you. And I think that's hearing your story about your experience in animation. I think that teaches you to be, at least in theory, and seeing you do it in practice, seeing that deliberate use of a line, especially from an animation standpoint, you can't get sketchy because that line has to move from frame to frame, and you can't have tons of lines because that would just be
you're drawing a pencil too.
True.
You're drawing a pencil too, and digitally it allows me to do all that in one layer and then start cleaning up, right? So you're drawing a pencil. So if you were, say, to take this and put it on a light table and then do another pass on it where you're refining the lines, that would be closer to what we're talking about here. There's a beautiful vitality and a life to this that I absolutely adore. You got some great negative space going on with his arms, so he's not all sort of pressed in there. I like what you did with the cape. There's a lot going on here. That's really, really solid drawing, brother. I really love it.
Oh man, I feel like I can go to sleep tonight with a big smile on my face because I just got a compliment from the epic subtle prophet that is John Delaney, telling me about that. And I just got a comment that we did get one person, Mr. Victor Rufino, who's a good friend of mine from the Philippines, who stayed up. I think it's like 2:30 in the morning in the Philippines, and he stayed up to watch you, John. And not only that, he drew Superman. So hold on 1 second, and I'm gonna pull up his artwork, and we can take a look at it. I noticed
Victor also said that Jose Luis Garcia Lopez was his favorite, and I'm absolutely a huge fan of Jose. Really 100%. He did all the merchandising Superman stuff throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it's just I actually have in my office a full stand-up of one of his. So yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I think he was responsible for doing, I think, the character Bible, I think, for DC Comics. I think it's like it's one of those much coveted, hard to find like a binder. If you actually had a copy of that, it's like gold. That's like you own gold. But here, when
I got signed to DC, they send you all that stuff, and it's killer. Like I have boxes, and I have real sketches from Bruce Timm about like how to draw Batman. It's just crazy stuff.
Okay, we're gonna have you on another show, and we're gonna have to go through your collection and just profile that. But here we go. This is Victor Rufino. Hold up. So here we go. Check that out. Victor is a
nice work.
Yeah. Victor is a student of anatomy and composition. He's always talking to me about new things that he's learning, like just studying other artists. And I think for a quick 15-minute composition, phenomenal work.
Awesome.
What do you think?
Great work, brother. Yeah, I love it. The only thing I'd say to it is, there's a see for us to hold superheroes' legs close together, especially in animation. There is a natural stance for us to actually. When we're standing, we don't necessarily usually hold our legs quite that close together. I'd probably just give him a little bit more placement so he has a little bit more stance. But other than that, the rest of it's fantastic.
Good observation. I totally see what you're talking about. But but rendering and gestures, you just got it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, very, very cool. So let me.
Fantastic, Victor. Great, really good.
Yeah. So we got some comments here. Let's see. Let me pop this up here. Victor talked about the DC style guide, and then we have Aurelis here who's chiming in. She says she loves that. So thank you very much, Aurelis and Victor, for your comments. And Victor just put in there, thanks guys, great critique. So yeah, I think Victor's just like me. We're taking it in that we've gotten critiques from John, so we're really happy about that. So
this is so cool that you have good attitudes about that, because you know what, it's not easy for me to say to somebody, here's something. I'll do it if they ask me to, and it's not something I like doing because, a lot of people put their heart and soul into it. But if you want to be good, listen to critiques. It makes such a difference. I took so many of them in my early days where you're going, like I said, 11 years sending in those submissions, every time I get a no, I saw that as a challenge. And so taking critiques is a really important part of that.
So pro tip is that you got to develop a thick skin listen to the critique and take from it and grow from it. Use it as not a statement that's meant to put you down, but it's meant to like elevate you and bring you up and make your game.
Not a rejection, it's a challenge.
There you go. There you go.
It's not a rejection.
All right, so let's go to our second challenge, and normally that's reserved for my co-host. And as you can see, that I have no co-host today. In fact, John, you've been such a great guest. You almost are like a co-host to me. So I talked to you a little bit about this yesterday. I said, hey, you know what? We're going to do something a little different. I'm going to throw this back at my guest, in this case, John, and we're going to do a challenge that's based on something that you come up with, John. And I will draw along with you.
Okay.
And of course, we'll have the invitation open to our guests, and they can definitely draw along with us as well. So I in the past, we've done everything from dexterity challenges where we have to draw with our non-dominant hand, or we've done like pop culture things where I think a couple weeks ago we did a kind of like a single line drawing challenge that was an homage to the late Taylor Hawkins from the drummer from the Foo Fighters. So that was a really nice thing that we did. But I'm going to leave that up to you. Have you thought of a nice little 15-minute drawing challenge that we can all do, John?
You're putting pressure on me.
It can be anything.
Yes.
It can be anything.
All right. I say we all draw. It should be something we all know, right? Okay. So let's move away from the superheroes. Why don't we do Fred Flintstone?
Fred Flintstone. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit to that. I'm going to say that you can do Fred Flintstone in whatever style. Like if you want to draw along with us, this will be kind of a fun challenge. It's like, hey, maybe you can do Fred Flintstone as the Punisher, or Fred Flintstone in a Zack Snyder movie. I don't know. You could do Fred Flintstone.
I love this. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Fred a little bit differently then.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start the clock, and I'm going to put your art cam back up there, John. So your art cam is now soloed. So that the challenge is to do Fred Flintstone in your style, and we will go from there. So I'm going to hit the start clock right now. And I'm going to throw a little question out here while we're all drawing, just to you, John. Why Fred Flintstone? Were you a big fan of the Hanna-Barbera era? What is as a springboard?
Anything by Hanna-Barbera is big to me. I love them. Alex, one of my all-time favorite artists, did so much design. He didn't design the Flintstones, but he designed, a Galaxy Trio and Galtar on the Golden Lance and a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff. So I got into Hanna-Barbera stuff because it was sort of that Saturday morning cartoon you could watch, and it always came on. And Fred Flintstone, I don't know, it's just so funny. He's such a weird, funny character, obviously based on Jackie Gleason, but I loved how stupid he could look, but at the same time, be so full of his own self-confidence. I don't know. There's something so funny about that. I love stupid people that are super confident.
That is so funny. It's like, and I'm a big fan of Hanna-Barbera too. I think there's a lot of nostalgia. I think you and I are very close in age, so I can remember coming home from school and watching I don't know how it was in Canada, but in rural Virginia, we had we didn't have too many cable channels, but I think it was like WTBS, which was the Ted Turner network. And
of course,
yeah. They had the Flintstones, and it would always be on after school. So I have to say that that was very a pivotal or very cherished part of my childhood, watching those cartoons. And it wasn't just Fred, it was the whole slew. Everything in Hanna-Barbera was just amazing.
Well, of course. Hey man.
Well, Fred Flintstone, aside from his hilarity, the absurdity of his character and some of his behaviors, it had dinosaurs. Were you a big dinosaur guy? Did you love dinosaurs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I love dinosaurs. I love drawing them, and who doesn't? I think every artist just, you got to have at least one or two Tyrannosaurus Rexes in your portfolio. They're just the best, and I just love the humiliating way that they put those poor dinosaurs into. Sometimes they're toilets. This is the worst, right? So.
Yeah, I had to agree.
And you got a bad job. So good.
Yeah, I have to say there was a charm to animation back in those days, and not to say that that isn't in today's animation, But I guess it's like one of those type of things, you know, when you're at my age, you gotta like think about, oh, things back in my day, you know, animation was so much better,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
and then we had to walk, you know, 100 miles in the snow to get to school. You know, it's just one of those funny things that you know, we kind of get biased, you know, to certain things. And you know, I have to say that today's
Oh, 100%.
animation pushes a lot of the norms, and there's a lot of really cool styles that have come out of it. But you know, it's always, you know, Hanna-Barbera just had such a near and dear place, you know, thing in my heart. But you know,
Yeah.
as we're talking about, you know, we you know, we talked a little bit about the Flintstones, and you know, I was talking about some of the new cartoon styles that are out there. What are some of the new cartoons that are out there that kind of you know, that make an impact on you? Like, do you have any favorites or
Morty, Rick and Morty for
Rick and
sure. Rick and Morty
yes,
is
yes.
it's so beautifully drawn. I mean, I know it's an adult cartoon. It's not necessarily something for kids or anything because of the nature of some of the topics that they discuss. But it's so beautifully animated and so beautifully drawn. But my all-time favorite right now that is just rocking my world is Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal.
Oh,
I don't know if you're. Oh, it's so beautiful. And, you know, Gendy is just, I worked with him on Dexter's Laboratory, and he's just an amazing guy and so talented and really so giving, you know, of his time and advice and things like that. I just have the greatest for Tarkovsky. And to see what he did with Primal is just mind blowing. Fully hand animated, just gorgeous, you know, everything, you know, they're using cartoon paint, which TV Paint rather is it's a tough program, you know, it does let you draw through, and it takes a lot of intuition, and to have using it and create a comic that or a animated show that looks like that is nothing short of a miracle.
you are. I have. That is such a good. I have to say, it's like you're just pulling out these artists that have also made an impact on me. And his whole style. I mean, the early Clone Wars, if you remember those from Star Wars.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. 100%.
And I believe was Samurai Jack. You know, just so many.
Samurai Jack was gorgeous.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, even Dexter. What he did with Dexter, it's just incredible. You know, like it's phenomenal. Like, yeah, I just I absolutely adore the guy's work. When I first got signed on to the Dexter's comic, the very first thing they said was, "Would you like to meet Gendy?" And I'm going, "Of course, absolutely." Are you kidding? You know. But so I go and have lunch with him and Craig Kraken, and they're just, you know, talking about, you know, how, like, the whole lunch we just spent, you know, how to draw Dexter effectively. Here's the tricks I use. Here's why I'm thinking this, you know, and I'm getting this art lesson as I'm having lunch with these guys. And next thing I know, I'm drawing Dexter, and I'm feeling like I actually get him. You know, like for me, it was a job at first, and now I'm going like, I really love this character, and I'm really, you know, like Dee Dee and all that, and that all came from Gendy just getting, you know, here's what I was thinking, and here's, you know, here's the route I go along, line of action, and all these things that, you know, really appeal to the animator in me. And I kept finding myself going, I can't believe I'm sitting with this guy, and he's taking all this time. The comic book artist who's just going to be drawing the comic book version of what he's doing, and he's taking all this time to make sure it's right. And he would even let me send, if I had any questions, going, yeah, you know, how would you draw this? I had one where Gendy, or where Dexter is drops all his clothes off and he jumps into a monkey cage and he wants to be an ape. And I'm drawing it back and forth. I'm going, yeah, that's okay. I'm not really. And so Gendy, I said, how would you draw Dexter, you know, if he's imitating? And he drew this freaking drawing that was amazing. I literally just took the drawing, blew it up on my light table, redrew it and retraced it and put it into the drawing because it was so superb, you know, like the guy is just that way.
That is amazing. Yeah, it's like I'm hearing these stories. It's like, who haven't you met? And just to actually get,
I've been very fortunate, bro. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, just to have to be schooled in a positive way, to be schooled positively, to show how you would approach it. I mean, that just man, I have to say that's just a great story to hear. You know, and then to actually practice what, you know, is being told to you in an actual professional capacity as well. Man, just good stories, just great things.
Thanks, man. No, you know, I feel very, very blessed to you know, have met so many of the people that I greatly admire, and then them turn out to be great people. You know, you always hear that old adage, never meet your heroes, right? But mine have always been wonderful experiences. It's, you know, I met Stan Lee, my very first Comic-Con. Stan, back in those days, the Marvel movies that come out. So he was just wandering the Comic-Con by himself, had no security, nothing, he's just wandering around. And I walk up to him and I go, he's Stan. I said, my name's John Delaney and I'm drawing Adventures in the DC Universe. And I just, I know you probably get this all the time, but I just really wanted to say, what an influence you had on me and thank you for everything you've done. And he looks at me and goes, great work over there, John. And I said, Stan, thank you very much for pretending to know the work I do. There's no way he knew what I was doing. That's just Stan, right? So encouraging.
Well, you know what? The fact that you had, I'm going to have to say, you had audience. You were able to have audience with the great Stan Lee.
Yeah.
And that's, you talked about how you rubbed elbows with George Perez, and now you've met Stan Lee before he became, Stan Lee was already an icon.
Still Stan Lee, but at that point he wasn't. Here's my friend Flintstone. If he like he wasn't doing all the cameos, so people in the industry certainly knew him. I mean, when I went up to him, at first he was, like, hey, let's go stand over here, because he didn't want a big thing, right? But he was just wonderful and, just so giving. And I'm very, very fortunate that way. I was working on a Dr. Fate comic for DC, and they called me up and said, hey, I don't, obviously you're going to love this, but I have something. So what's that? And he says, John Byrne's going to ink your Dr. Fate. I said, the John Byrne? He goes, yeah, John Byrne. I'm going, Superman, Man of Steel, John Byrne. X-Men, John Byrne. He goes, going to ink me. He goes, yeah. So I'm like, unbelievable. And I can't believe it. Paige has come back with freaking amazing, just fantastic work. I'm at the height of my, I'm just ready to explode. I'm so excited. So I call up the editor and I said, I'd really love John's phone number. I just want to call him and tell him what a great job he did. And he says to me, he goes, John doesn't take calls. He's kind of grumpy. He's kind of a grumpy guy. He won't take the call, but you're welcome to try. And I went, okay, I'll try. So I call up, phone answers, it's him. He picks it up, he goes, hello. I go, it's him. I go, Mr. Byrne? And he goes, John's fine, who's this? And I went, it's John Delaney. We just a Dr. Fate comic. And he goes, right. Hey, you do that, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, oh, what are you calling about? I go, I just wanted to call and say thank you. The work you did was phenomenal. That was really, really great inking, and I didn't even get into the fan part at this point. I was just trying to tell him how great it is. And he goes, that's really nice. I wish more professionals would call one another and say when they like the work professionals done. And I said, I should also point out that I'm a huge fan. He goes, we don't know that.
And that's when
didn't want that at all.
That's when the grumpiness came out. But you know what? That's an amazing story.
I loved it. I loved it because I thought to myself, he's so he's kind of humble and he's just like, I don't want to get into a bunch of big. And I suffer from that a little bit too. I don't really like a lot of accolades and that. But when he said we don't need to get into that, then it was just like, this is really nice that two professionals are talking, and so he gave me a professional, a guy like John Byrne, like he's so above me at that point. Even now. I was just so flattered by the fact that all he really wanted to have was a conversation between us. And he certainly didn't want a fanboy. So that's how we talked. For the rest of the conversation, I was just said, I love the weight you use. What did you use? What brush? And we were just talking about different things. And he was saying, sometimes I use a brush, sometimes I use this. And then we wrapped up the conversation and I hung up and I phoned up my editor. I said, he talked to me. He talked to me.
I love hearing that because I think sometimes when we think of our idols, we put them so far up on a pedestal, but then not realizing, they're human too. They have good days, they have bad days, they go through emotions just like all of us. And it's great when you were able to have like that artist to artist conversation, the vibe, and just be able to talk about who would have thought that you'd be talking about what kind of brush would you use for this? It's like those are like those are just kind of like very casual things that you kind of like talk to among your peers, but here you're talking to like industry legends, asking them. So
incredible,
very, very cool story.
It was incredible. I mean, I've had some really, really cool moments like that in my career. One time, I was just finishing a Green Lantern, and Bloom, who had done a lot of the Green Lantern with Gil Kane in the early days, written a lot of them, and then Gil had drawn them. He was at another table, and so one of the people that was working for DC Comics at the time, one of the interns, came up and said, I know you're working on Green Lantern. Would you like to meet John Bloom? And I went, oh yeah, John Bloom. And I go, oh, yeah, heck yeah. So as we're walking over there, it's the only time this has ever happened. About midway through there, I said, I'm going to turn back. And she went, and I said, I just can't do it. I'm
What?
overwhelmed. He's just so a legend, and he basically created, the modern hell, right? It was always Alan Scott before that, and the idea of things and these grand ideas. And I was thinking to myself, what are you going to talk to him about? I'm just, and I just kind of went, I turned around, I went back to the table, and I sat down for a while, and I just kind of went, you know what? You got to know sometimes when you're not going to bring anything to that other than you're so talented. And oh my God! I just knew I was going to be that guy, right? Yeah. So I did.
Oh,
I'll tell you one more story.
Wait.
I'll tell you this one.
The story though is you didn't. So you actually, I thought you were going to end with you finally got the nerve and turned around and talked to him.
No, I waved one. But no, I just couldn't do it. And that was the only time that I just kind of felt like, mainly because I just didn't feel like I could bring anything to the conversation. I thought I'd just be fanboy. Right?
Okay.
So on my second Comic-Con that DC brought me out for, I was at the Big Apple Comic-Con. I was doing this again, kind of fanboying, all over the place. When the John story happened later, that was later in my career, so I was aware of my fanboy. So I was standing there talking to Tony Daniel at the time, who was Tony Harris rather, who was doing Starman. And Tony's a really good guy, and our books were out at the same time, so we were sort of sitting at a lot of tables together, and we just got to know each other pretty well. Really good dude. And I'm gushing over everybody, as they're coming up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a fan. And they're going, it's cool, man. We're all just contemporaries, that kind of thing. So I'm talking to Tony about it, and I say, I'm feeling like kind of an idiot. Keep gushing all over everybody, and like, I should be, cool. I'm contemporary, now. And he goes, no, man, we're all fans here. He says, some guys are, you're just fans, and others don't worry about it. So as I'm saying that, there's Gil Kane standing there, and I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. I'll walk over to Gil Kane. I'll be all badass. So I went up to him and I said, hey, Gil, I'm currently drawing Green Lantern. I just want to let you know I did a couple of homage panels to you, the classic Hal Jordan. I just, wanted to say that, your work on Hal Jordan specifically was so seminal and so great. And I just really wanted to went down, and he's very sweet, very, very kind. He's got a soft voice. And he goes, oh, thanks very much. That's very kind of you, John. I said, right on. So I walk away and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm saying to Tony, I go, I did it. It was cool. Then all of a sudden Frank Miller comes walking up, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, Frank Miller, right? This is the one, right? And I'm trying, and Frank Miller's, of course, he's got a reputation of the bad boy of comics back in these days. He's wearing all jet black and dark hair and walking along, walking up, and I'm going, oh, I can feel the fanboy coming up. I said, it's cool, man. You got this. And before I can get to Frank, before I can even get to him, he walks up to Gil Kane. Gil, I'm such a fan. I'm such a big fan. So I go to Frank Miller, give me a fanboy.
Yeah, that is a good story, because you know what, even our idols have fans, and it's just it's nice to know that that's the human aspect of it. You really can just you're allowed to appreciate your
100%.
people that influence
I took myself
you, and
a lot less seriously after watching Frank Miller. I went, okay, you can take it a lot less seriously. Yeah. Let's go.
All right. Oh, and you know what? While we were talking about that, I noticed my alarm went off here. So we have just finished our 15 minutes here for doing some fan art of Fred Flintstone. All right, so I'm going to solo your cam, and I love that. That looks like it could be official Hanna-Barbera artwork here. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about this. Here we go. So I'm going to solo you. Go ahead and talk about this a little.
So Fred is just a wonderful character. Again, he's created through shapes more than anything else. So if we're actually studying the line on here, it's like a pear shape here, and his body actually is a circular oval. So all those shapes land first, and then everything breaks away from it. This is the great aspect of his design. The nose, even the lip overcomes the arc of the cheek. Very important that all these things stick out. That's a big Hanna-Barbera thing. So each time that you're doing the overbite and you're having the eyes, you'll notice this little pupil sit in front of the eyes. That's a very, very important Hanna-Barbera thing. It allows for eye direction rather than it just sort of being sort of dead, right? So all the different little things, that's what makes a character like Fred Flintstone work, is the fact that they have all these little subtleties that you don't really think much about until you actually see them drawn. And then you go, oh, that's why it looks like Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, and it looks so alive to me. Like I said, it could look like official Hanna-Barbera artwork, because I can almost hear what he's saying. It's like he's emoting. Yeah, he's like Yeah, it's like
I sat out on the porch for about an hour.
It's like Barney. Yeah, I could totally. Yeah, so and we've gotten a few comments here, so let me pop them up here. Let me see. We got Molly saying cool Flintstone drawing. We got got Aurelis saying it's perfect. I agree. Your artwork is perfect.
Thank you.
And let me see. I'm trying to think. And I guess
George wants me to tell the Patrick Stewart story. Oh, that's
yes,
funny.
you saw that too. So let's get through these illustrations, and when we get to like our next drawing challenge, we're going to do a combination. Okay. We will talk about. Here's a little hint. We're gonna actually talk about one of John's own IPs, his original character, but we're gonna work the Patrick Stewart story into there as well. So hopefully, maybe there's some sort of parallel that we can go in there.
Well, yeah,
very, very cool. So. I love this Flintstone drawing. It's just really cool. And I'm just going to put a comment out there. If anybody drew along with us, let me go to our art show page and see if anybody drew Fred Flintstone with us. If they did, we can pop that up here. And it looks like no one did, but if you choose to, it's never too late. You can definitely let us know in the comment field, and we'll be more than happy to share that with you, or share that with John and the rest of the audience. So that being said, let me show you my quick one, and then we'll move into the third drawing challenge. So hold on one moment. And this was just me reacting to something that I said spontaneously, and I ended up just doing it. So here we go. I ended up doing Fred Flintstone as the Punisher. So
love it.
I can't. I need. Yeah, I need to go to John's school of like learning how to proportion shapes and make them more emotive. And then I was like thinking to myself, after I gave him kind of like a more modern look, and I thought maybe I should have like given, instead of like a pistol, I should have given him like a slingshot, like automatic slingshot. I don't know. There could have been like all sorts of like right. There could have been some more prehistoric, sensibilities that could have been added to this one. But it was done in 15 minutes and it was fun. I didn't know that. And it was a nice distraction. So had a good time. Great challenge, John. I think this is going to be a like we're talking about you being a prophet. We talked a little bit yesterday about like how this
we were talking about that. You said
okay. I'm going to say that you're that we were talking, and we had such a good time talking about you and learning about what you're going to say and how the pre-show it was just swimmingly done, was so well. And I was like, you'd be just a great host, and who knows, you might be a future co-host here on Comics Cast. And this drawing challenge just goes to show just how fun it could be. So let me stop sharing this, and we're gonna go into our final drawing challenge. So let me minimize your art cam, and I'm gonna share some more artwork. I'm gonna go back to that PDF. So hold on one moment. And let me pull that back up. All right. So our third drawing challenge is I sort of alluded to it already, which is a IP, an intellectual property, original character, OC, that John has come up with. And I know nothing about this character other than it was shelved because of the pandemic. So I know that now that we're hopefully coming out of the worst part of the pandemic, that things are going to get back to normal, and we're going to hear about this character. And this character is called Doc Knock, and I noticed it says "In the City of Dusk," and I couldn't help but think of that movie called Dark City. Did you ever watch that movie? The Dark City. It was
Dark City. Oh yeah,
in the
sure. Dark City.
It was
that movie.
Yeah, it was a very had a very profound story, and we're not going to talk about that. I think everybody should check it out. It was very thought provoking in terms of like the way they framed that story.
Rufus Sewell, Jennifer Connelly, Kiefer Sutherland's in it. It's such a good movie. It's actually directed by The Crow. Yeah, it's
yes,
so good.
Look, you are a wealth of knowledge. I'm gonna have to, like, if I ever go on a game show and there's gonna be some pop culture trivia, I know who my lifeline is. I'm gonna call John. All right, so I'm gonna set the clock up for another 15 minutes, and we're gonna draw Doc Knock.
I'll tell a really quick background on Doc Knock, just so you understand if you are going to join us.
Okay.
The character of Doc Knock comes from the city of Dusk is actually the city of New York, and it's been, I don't want to give away, it's basically been overtaken and covered in a field that makes it dusk all the time. It's always sort of almost night, almost day kind of thing, right? So he exists inside the city. He's trying to take me back for humanity, and we can get into the story once people read it. I don't want to give, but he's an electrical being, and because he's an electrical being, he has to wear a containment. And his containment suit is a homemade containment suit. So he's wearing black rubber from like an adult store. He's wearing a rubber mask, and he's got goggles. That's why he's got tape everywhere, pieces together, because if it breaks, he'll seep out, right? The rubber will seep out, and he can't contain his energy. So it's much more homemade. So you see the electricity come from his head. That's because he's wearing a Brad Pitt mask and goggles, and the hair just sits straight up to electricity, and the electricity kind of comes out. So when you're drawing it, that's electricity on top of his hair. It's a little weird. There it is.
Yeah, well, I was actually gonna.
There he's taking his glove off.
Yeah, actually, I was like gonna save that for when we actually start drawing it, so you could like give some more insight. But you just sort of gave it all, the kit and caboodle in terms of who Doc Knock. But I guess we can kind of like, a little insight. That's okay, because one thing that I've learned is that we will not have any dead air. We're gonna have something to talk about. So here we have Doc Knock here, and I want our audience to do a screen capture of this if you're gonna plan to draw along with us. And you just got some insight in terms of like what his costume, is, and it gives a new definition to electrical tape. So I think that you can kind of see this homemade. Yes, so you get to see this. It's really, this is again John taking it to another level. He's just not making a costume that looks like flamboyant or heroic or spandex. It's like he's actually looking at some practical aspects of this particular costume. It reminds me of like Spider-Man in the MCU. He had his original costume was like, he called it underoos. It was like a sweatshirt, sweatpants, homemade. And I'm looking at this, and when I looked at it, it didn't look homemade. But then you talked about it, and then I see that now, and very cool. So anyway. If you're going to draw along with us, do a screen capture right now. This is to our audience, so you'll know what the visual reference is. And then I think I might be able to share both. So let me hold on one second. Let me add your art screen to here. And hold on. Yeah, I can. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put in the lower corner, you can see Doc Knock, and your art cam is going to be large here. So John, I'm just going to before we get into Doc Knock, George Michael mentioned that you had a Patrick Stewart story that he wanted you to tell. So before we get into like the intricacies of Doc Knock, let's hear this Patrick Stewart story. And the clock is ticking. Here we go.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. All right, cool. I'll draw at the same time while I'm telling the story. Is that okay?
Yes,
I can
yes.
Do that. Okay, so years ago, no problem. So years ago, I was working on or I was brought in to do storyboards on X-Men 2. So Ryan Singer was directing it, and Guy Diaz was the sort of lead art director. Wonderful guy. So I go in. I've been doing a lot of storyboards at that point. I've been working on X-Files, Millennium, and Lone Gunman, Dark Angel, a lot of these different shows that were being done up in Vancouver. And so for this, so I'm having this wonderful, I meet Hugh Jackman, I meet Anna Paquin and Famke Janssen, but I'm a huge Star Trek guy. Like, I'm huge into Star Trek. And so Patrick Stewart was obviously going to be the big win meeting him. And I had it in my mind that I thought everybody meets Patrick Stewart, they'll probably, do his voice or do something like that. But I was remembering that one episode, Next Generation, The Inner Light, where Patrick Stewart gets a probe, or Captain Picard gets a probe on his head, and he lives an entire life on another planet where he's a young man, he grows into an old man. It's an acting class. It's one of those things you just go, if you ever want to teach anybody how to act, watch Patrick Stewart do this. He plays a young man in going into an old man and just does it phenomenally. It's just incredible. So I'm to myself, if I meet Patrick Stewart, my whole thing is going to be The Inner Light. I'm going to say, Sir Patrick, just want to comment on your work on The Inner Light. It is literally an acting class. It's something that you could give to anybody, and they would just have their minds blown by how good an actor you are and what you can do, just through the love of acting. So I've got this all loaded up, and I'm some ideas. So we're going over some of the things. I ended up actually leaving that project to go direct something of my own, but at the time I was, pretty hooked and being ready to do it. And then as I'm talking to a guy, I hear behind me, "I don't think Xavier would say that." I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I turn around, and it's him, and he's dressed as Charles Xavier, and he's talking to Brian Singer, the director. They're going over this thing. It's just going. This is a big moment, and I'm thinking, Interlight, you got this, no problem, like this, right? And Guy Diaz can see I'm sweating and losing my mind. "Did you want to meet Sir Patrick?" I said, "I really do. I really, really want to meet Sir Patrick." He goes, "Okay, we can arrange that." So as I walk by, he goes, "Sorry, Sir Patrick, can I have a moment of your mind?" Patrick Stewart walks over to me. Now I'm standing across from Patrick Stewart, like, Interlight, going through this thing. And he goes, "Patrick, this is John Delaney from the storyboard." He goes, "Well, it's very nice to meet you, John." He puts his hand out, and I say, "Big fan." He wanted to like, "Oh God, couldn't hold it together."
It's like
not my
you meet
greatest
your.
moment.
That is such a great story.
So funny.
So do you think
Not my greatest
that he, did you think he took it the wrong way, or was he just being very professional?
No, I think he took it well. I think it was more just an annoyance to him. He was kind of like, "Oh, that's it," kind of thing. Whatever.
That is a funny story. And you know what? I guess let's take a moment here because I want to give a shout out to one of your partners in crime, is George McCall. Is it McCall or McCall?
McHale.
McHale, yeah. George McHale. He was a former guest on our show, and he actually connected me with you. So I really want to just do a public shout out to him and say, hey, thanks, George, for putting us two together, and to hearing that story. He said that he's going to be working with a pet project with you. I think it's called was it Frankenstein, I believe. We're going to save that. Well, actually, we can talk about your relationship with George, but we'll save talking about the Frankenstein project to afterwards. So go ahead and let's talk about your relationship with George.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, George reached out to me a few years back. Studio in town called Comic, and we were just in the process of sort of putting that together. And George had this really, really cool idea for sort of a takeoff on a 80s action adventure called Fire Engine Red. And she was this redheaded firefighter who ends up getting sort of trapped in the middle of a big forest fire, and she has to rescue her boyfriend who has been captured by these terrorists. It's a bit like Die Hard in a forest fire. That's the pitch George used to go with. And,
that's awesome.
So it's really yeah, it was super cool, and I loved it. And he just said, he goes, I've tried drawing it a little bit myself, but it's just not, not kind of going my way. And so then we talked about it, we looked it over, and I said, yeah, I'd love to do this. So we started working on it together. And at the same time, I got all my company. So suddenly I didn't really have the time to do it. And this is a testament to the kind of cool guy that is. I said, I came with him right away, and I just said, look, but I would love to sign on to this concept over to Comic Stream and get you an artist that you want and stuff. And George really liked Ali Garza, who done Teen Titans and done a bunch of things.
I've heard of that guy.
Ali, and he started drawing it for us. So it turned it in. Yeah, I know he's very, very talented. So that all turned out pretty great. Unfortunately, when the COVID happened, we lost a lot of our funding and the company shut down. So those pages, it'll be a little while before we get them out there. But they did turn out. George's writing is super cool, and so we became fast friends about that, obviously. And working at Comic Stream with me is working sort of as a directorial assistant and editorial assistant. And we went to a bunch of Comic Cons together, and we just, the more time we hung out together, the more fun we had. And we just became such buddies. I consider George one of my dearest, bestest friends right now. And we just get along great. And he's always got just a wealth of ideas, great writer. He's currently got a contract with Source Point doing this comical Cover of Darkness, which takes all the classic horror characters and updates them or changes their sort of origins. So Frankenstein was during Atlantis, times of Atlantis, and it's his wife who brings him back to life. So he's now the Frankenstein monster, but it's Mary Frankenstein who brings him back. And so there's a whole Bride of Frankenstein story that he and I are now working on together as part of that. George also got a couple of great deals. He's got a great book out called Resilience right now. You should check it out. Great artist on it, really fantastic. So yeah, he's very, very prolific and very, very good friend. And it was wonderful that he introduced us, because now we're doing this, and look how much fun we're having.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about just that, in terms of your other future projects after we finish this. But I just like that you have this kind of relationship where you have creators, good friends, but they're also creators themselves. So it's nice to have that kind of a mutual, I guess, understanding that goes beyond friendship, because you can totally geek out about things that you're both interested in. It's nice to have that kind of creative.
Oh, and we do.
And I think
100%.
that
we were movie nights together. Like the Long Halloween came out, we watched that at his place. When the Zack Snyder extended version of Justice League came out, we watched that at his place. And we do these things all the time because we both love the same stuff, and we love talking about it afterwards, right? And so it's wonderful friendship.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because when you have that kind of relationship, you have a mutual understanding in terms of like how things work, because you can geek out about the stuff that you're creating together. So I think that's really neat. But yeah, let's get back to Doc Knock. What was the since we're not going to go into like spoiler territory, because this is something that's going to come out later on, but let's just talk about maybe influences. Like, what made you want to do this? Like, were you a fan of like other electrified characters, or was there like a personal experience, or like something? What was the inspiration behind creating Doc Knock?
Yeah, I mean, the electrical aspect of him came from the idea that I wanted a life force, like a being from another planet that didn't look like it. The Superman story works because he happens to look human, so he's raised by humans and all that. But I love the idea of like, what if someone landed on our planet and not only didn't look like be effective without having to harness himself sort of in our environment, right? That he actually could be damaged by just being on Earth, right? As an electrical force, he would be his electricity drained off by the sun, could be drained off by the moon, could be drained off by electricity, or like an electrical map or a grid or any of those things, right? So he has to find ways to keep himself alive, but at the same time trying to stop a mistake he made, which is the reason on Earth is because somebody onto our planet who took over the city of New York and turned it into the city of Dust, a perfect environment for another being to not be. So he's the one who's basically trapped the city of New York, calling it the city of now. So Doc Knock to stop him, essentially, after having unleashed him. And the line of the comic goes, I was a child when we first started receiving the messages. Like everyone else, I was afraid we're not alone in the universe, but at the same time, I became exhilarated. They spoke in a language unknown to us. We couldn't figure it out. We didn't even understand it. There were sounds and buzzes and pops and that. But after a long period of time, I became the sort of, I'm paraphrasing right now, but he goes, I became the authority on these languages, and I was able to determine one consistency amongst them, the name of their planet. They call their planet Earth. And so it's his planet's receiving our message, right? And that's screwing things up on his planet. So originally he tries to send a way to interrupt the signals because they're electrical, so they go directly into their brains. He's trying to stop the signals by sending a rocket, and then the rocket gets hijacked by a villain who actually wants to direct line the signals from. So that sends this whole thing into peril, and it becomes a story like that. So now he's responsible for that. Yeah.
Very, very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. And now I don't know if you intentionally did this, and I hope I didn't spoil it, but you revealed he's an alien. And because when I looked at it, I looked at his the drawing that you, or the illustration that you provided, and I thought he was human who had
electrical powers.
Electrical powers. But so is his human appearance, is that like just something that he's able to like adopt, like his alien form is like pure energy, or what?
Yeah,
exactly?
He's pure energy. His physical form doesn't look like, he's silica based as opposed to carbon based. So his entire body is electrical. There is nothing that holds it. His planet, he comes from a planet that is a singular landmass eclipsed by a moon. So the moon is constantly in rotation with the landmass, so it's always eclipsed, and that has created the perfect environment for a silica-based life form to exist. Should the planet ever be bombarded by the sun's rays, they would be destroyed. But because it's permanently eclipsed, they live. And so when they become these hyper intelligent individuals that completely communicate electrically, they start receiving electric signals, right, from Earth, which has been sending out electric signals since, the first Olympics, when Hitler broadcast the Olympics. So the idea is that they started receiving all these things over the years, right? So they don't even understand them at first. And then when they finally do understand them, they start to realize that that's having a pretty dramatic effect on them as a populace. And so now to save their population, they don't realize that these are signals. They're pops and buzzes to them at first. So they rocket with a pulse basically interrupted, not realizing they just sent a rocket to the center of New York, and they're going to interrupt hospitals, all water, everything, right? So he realizes midway through, goes to stop it, but by now it's been jacked by a guy who really wants that. So it's a conflict. He's responsible. He's responsible for that.
I like how you're surprising me every time when I'm like learning more and more about your story. It's like, you're bringing in like these you're putting the science in science fiction. You're talking about like eclipses.
That's what I'm trying to do. I wanted him to do that. Also, I didn't want him to be this, like, oh, he's just a good guy going out. I wanted him to be responsible and go, holy shoot, what have I done here? Like I feel like an entire race of beings just because they were causing us discomfort.
Yeah.
So he realizes this, the ramifications, actions that he thought he was doing to be altruistic for his people, but not considering the fact that there might be people there that could be affected in such a dramatic way, right? So I love the idea of a superhero screwing up first.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes for an interesting story is that, if a character is just like I'm going to use the word like Mary Sue, if everything comes easy to them and they're like, they're just super OP'd and they're just want to, everything comes easy to them, then it doesn't seem like it's an interesting story because we all go through struggles, and how can we relate to something if everything is perfect? And when I meant that, when I said Mary Sue, I think that applies to both male and female type characters. I think it's just
100%. I know you're going.
You just want to be able.
Thing, that idea. Didn't that all go great? But it should.
Yeah, right.
There are actions and reactions to every single thing we do. I mean, Isaac Newton said that, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if we understand like that there is responsibility to us every single time we do something, it makes a much more interesting story than, just a story that says, oh yeah, I wanted to help and I went and helped you, and aren't I a great guy? You're going, come on, there's got to be motivations for why we do everything. And he might be a Superman who just wants to help, but that didn't come out of nowhere. That he was raised that way by these parents, right? Who said, right? So he took that, and I will. But he could have also been raised by Zod, and yes, way, right? So there are applications to every one of us, right?
Right.
And so a character that was flawed, and a lot of this actually happened to a partner of mine, a guy named Adam Clark. He said to me, he goes, right now he's just coming off as a little too altruistic. He seems like he does only the right things, right? And said, what if he's the guy who actually first makes the rocket? Because my original idea was that the other guy made the rocket, and then he finds it and he wants to stop him. And then Adam's simple suggestion that maybe he makes the rocket has made it a better story. I went, oh my God, that's so much better. So.
Yeah, that's great, and it's nice to see how that evolved. And I don't know if you just you mentioned this scenario in terms of like circumstance and like if did you ever watch that movie? I think it was called Brightburn, and it's like what if if there was a character like Superman, but he just happened to not land in Kansas and be influenced by negative things, versus positive things. And
well, it's an interesting thing because what they did with Brightburn, which I really enjoyed. James Gunn, he always kind of finds ways to make things a lot more interesting than the standard trope. We all understand, well, what if Superman was raised in a bad environment? But he was still actually raised in a good environment there. He had adolescent things happen to him that happens to all of us, and he wasn't prepared for it. And so he had powers to do about it. And I love that. I love the idea that his parents actually did try to do the right thing, but this kid was insubordinate because he was going, I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, I guess I need to rephrase that. Sort of like, it was more circumstance. There were circumstances that were beyond, that that the character in there, the protagonist who becomes the antagonist, he basically is faced with a lot of things that lead him down a dark path, and it's sort of like he got seduced by the dark side, basically, and went
you know what I love about it too is that
mm-hmm.
he was suffering that any intelligent young man, like at one point he's answering all the questions and the other bullies are making fun of him because he's smart, and any of us who wanted to be intelligent, or maybe and I wear this badge proudly, we're kind of nerdy,
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that I loved comic books. I love the fact I loved animation. I loved all those things, but I definitely recognized that was outside of what some of the other guys would think was cool. Personally, I couldn't have given a crap, but some kids aren't raised like I was raised in our family, so it was very much encouraged to be, stand your ground, be cool about that, right? But I saw lots of my other friends who were kind of nerdy, having to put up with the antagonism or the bullying and all that. And you're looking at this, it's going through the exact same things. The only difference is he has to do something about it. Take that story and tell that story. That's what he did so effectively, which was it wasn't anything terrible that happened to him. It was the same thing that happens to all of us. The only difference is he could actually do something about it, right? And that's what made it so dark.
I'm so ready for when that story drops. When you're ready to actually share that with the world.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. Yeah, it's cool. Like I created this entire nature because by the time Knock gets down, Doc Knock gets there, it's later. It takes him that long to rebuild a new rocket, right? So by the time he gets there, that city's been under martial law essentially for 16 years by an alien despot, essentially. So there's all these factions in New York that are now broken apart. There is still police in there, but they call themselves the police family because they're all the descendants of the police. There's none in the police, right? They're just doing it themselves, trying to keep some balance in this thing. And all the other the buildings have now been populated by crime. So the higher you get up in the buildings, the more crime there is and stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's a neat concept.
It reminds me of I think Judge Dredd, when they had that those towers and it's sort of it's like different levels of criminality. Criminalities, the higher you go up there. But very cool.
When I saw Dredd, I was a little jarred because I was like, oh, that's sort of similar. I mean, it wasn't, but it was. But that idea that there was these echelons of crime, and you'll see in the back of that one drawing that I showed, there's some organic, weird-looking shaped buildings too. He builds shapes from his original designs. In those, there's no windows on them because he's electrical. Right? He doesn't want any magnetic from anywhere else. So those buildings are completely. If you go inside those, the only person that could actually really exist in that would be an electrical being. So he's actually kind of set it that way. So it leads up to the ending. So.
Well, like I said, you're putting this
up in the corner.
You're putting the science in science fiction. That's all I got to say. Really cool things. There's total method to your madness, and I love it. I love it. So the clock has expired. So
Thank you, brother.
Let me go back to solo. I'm going to solo your art cam. Hold on one second.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, can you zoom in? Let's look at your. I want to see the strokes that you put on this thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so
let me see here. Let me get back to my thing here. Yeah. There we go. So this is very rough, obviously, but so what he's wearing for the coat it's a fireman's coat, and then he's taped all the things. He's got these goggles over top of the thing. He's taped over his nose and his mouth because any holes in the mask would allow his electricity to seep out. So anywhere where there might be holes, it's taped over with electrical tape. There is a line where he's wearing the Brad Pitt mask, like he's put this thing on, and it burns white because the paint burns right off of it because of the thing, right? And he says, "This mask, who is it?" The girl who's helping him says, "It's Brad Pitt." And she goes, "You're welcome, by the way."
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. And you know what? We're going to talk, about where people can obviously, if they like and follow you on Instagram, when this is ready to drop, you'll announce it there. But when it is ready to drop, I want to have you back on the show so we can talk more about it. So this is Doc Knock. I'm going to look in the comment field and I'm going to check out our page and see if anybody drew along with us. So hold on one moment and let me refresh this. And it looks like in the comment field, let's see, nobody. Oh, shoot, we did get somebody. We got Victor who drew along. We got Sarah. Oh, and actually we got actually another Fred Flintstone. We got some extra stuff that happened while we were all talking.
Right on.
So let me save that real quick. Hold on one moment. Just bear with me, and I'm going to add these to our list of things that we're going to look at. And your character is resonating with people because they're fan arting already, and it's not even published yet. So
Awesome.
it's a very, very cool. And I have to say, his story is very intriguing. So I'm just looking forward to seeing where you're going to take this. So hold on, let me get this.
Thanks,
Fred
man.
Flintstone.
I'm excited to do it.
Where's the? I think I misplaced the Fred Flintstone one that we just got added to the list. So hold on one moment. And this is why I need a co-host, because that way I can have somebody that's helping me get all this artwork going along. So hold on. This is the Fred Flintstone, I believe. Okay. All right. So let me put that there, and let me put this in the image file. All right. Let me share this real quick. So I'm going to stop sharing and share. All right. Here we go. All right. So here we have Sarah Samba, who did a version of Doc Knock. Her style is like she's a big fan of anime, manga, and Disney. So she kind of put her own spin on it. But I love the effects.
Yeah, dig it.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Very cool.
And then we have Victor Ruffino.
Wow.
Look at this. I like how
That's awesome.
He did the subtraction method.
I love the expression, like the. Oh, that's cool. Love it.
And he.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I have him pulling the glove off in that one drawing. You know where he's pulling the glove? Because one of the things he says, he goes, he can manipulate our brainwaves if he wants to, right? But he doesn't like to do that. And he goes, I could easily change your way of thinking, but for you, it's the hands-on approach.
That's a classic line. So when there's a movie, we're gonna have to talk about fan casting for your when Doc Knock becomes a movie, and who's gonna deliver that kind of line. So that's really cool. So here we have Victor Ruffino, who actually I think Victor Ruffino.
Awesome.
Yeah. He did
That's a really giant man too. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he did a Fred Flintstone as well. So I want to thank you all for participating in live drawing, and I'm sure that John is getting a kick out of it as much as I am to see this kind of participation. So let me, we're going to close out the live drawing segment, and if anybody still wants to draw along, they can definitely post it to the art show. And I'm just going to encourage John, like later on after the show, you can just go through the comment field and see if there's any comments that I missed. Sure. You can definitely go through them and respond to them, as well as look at any other artwork that might be shared after the show. But let me stop sharing this, and I will share one more thing. Let's see. And this is my version of Doc Knock, which is messy, but what can I do in 15 minutes? So here we go. So I don't know if you can... Let me put it at an angle here so you can see it. Yeah, and I cool. Listening to what you said, actually his mouth shouldn't be open. It actually should be completely covered. But
he's always taped shut. But that's okay.
Yeah, but it's kind of a neat thing. Quick and dirty. I think I'd need to revisit it now that I've heard more about his story and mess around with it. I love it. I think it's cool. I just like that he's an alien who's trying to do good. Trying to do good here on Earth, and realizing that he can easily just like Superman,
trying to repair the mistake too, which I love.
Yeah, but just like Superman, he can rule.
Him, it's also about repairing a mistake. 100%. And I think once we give flaws, we create a much more interesting character. And I think one of the reasons that Batman is universally loved for so long is because he's filled with flaws. Mm-hmm. That is the difficulty for people to understand. Superman has his flaws, and his flaws is his hubris and his vulnerability to his emotions. Right? It can break Superman's heart, and that can actually do way more damage than anything Kryptonite could do. So flaws are what kind of make the characters interesting. So I love that.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's what makes for an interesting story. And I think the story of Doc Knock, I'm just looking forward to seeing when it drops. And like I said, we're going to have you back on the show to talk about it. And that's a good segue right now to go to the last part as we move towards the end of the show, is to talk about what is the future for John Delaney? Like you've told so many great stories. It's like, what mountain haven't you climbed already? Like, you know, it's like I feel like you've experienced so much. You have such, you know, a diverse range of talents that you know, the sky's the limit. I think I was joking with you. It's like you've climbed those mountains. So what's the next is outer space. You know, like what are those goals? You know, are they like, you know, are they like they exist in the ether, like, you know, above Earth. So let me put the mic back in your hands and let's talk about the future. Like, what is the future for John Delaney?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple things, you know, I'm brewing right now. Obviously, I mentioned earlier about Rock Gods. Very excited to be playing in the NFT world. Rock Gods is a very exciting prospect because it combines two of my ultimate loves, obviously drawing and then music. So the two of those, it makes it very exciting for me to be part of it, and I hope people will check it out. Like I say, it's Rock God NFT on IG, but then if you go to Discord, it's Rock Gods. We're putting out a lot of original artwork. I'm playing in a sandbox I hadn't played in before. Usually they were single drawings and doing a lot of Comic-Con drawings, and then, you know, designed for animation. To be doing something that relies on the computer to the algorithm to actually print out animations of the different things I've done is really exciting and cool. So I'm loving that. I'm also working on right now on a graphic novel with a writer named Aaron Hazelhurst called The Willows, which is very, very cool. And we're looking to do a movie for that. And I'm hoping to direct that film to a little smaller budget, but a $5 million budget film. So I'd love to do that. And that's all live action, which would be fun to do. That. I've directed a few things in live action. I haven't do a full-length feature yet, so this will be that, which would be great. A lot of second unit stuff when I was working in Vancouver on different shows, so I was able to, you know, if they had a scene where the car pulls up in front of a building, I could direct stuff like that. I was about to swear. Stuff like that, but
it's all right. Be yourself.
All right. I can direct that shit. But
there you go.
Yeah. But so this would be my first full-length feature one. Directed some television shows and stuff in the past, but to actually get a chance to really break off a $5 million budget and just go in there and direct that would be really, really awesome. So I'm hoping that happens in the future. But in the meantime, I'm working on Rock Gods. I'm doing this amazing piece with George McHale about the Frankenstein.
Yes.
I can't show you guys that one. That one, I'm coloring that as well. So I'm inking. Drawing, inking, and coloring it. It's just turning out great. The script is really, really cool by George and by his writing partner Cam Chris, who is phenomenal. Gets a really beautiful sense of dialogue and really, really fun. They're running around into, you know, various different wonders of the world as they're trying to fight some of the adversaries. I don't want to give away too much. So it's very, very cool. I get to draw, you know, like the Colossus of Rome and the hanging gardens of Babylon and stuff like that. Things that haven't existed in years, and you only have sketches on them. So I'm drawing stuff like that. So that's very cool. And it's been really fun that and finding my voice artistically in the world that George has created is very, very fun too. You know, to actually be doing that. I've got also a couple of Comic Cons coming up this weekend. I'm doing one in Calgary, and then I've got another one in Chicago in July, I believe, and I've got one in Orlando coming up as well too. So, but I advertise them on IG all the time. So if you follow me at John Delaney 40, you'll see everything I'm doing. One of the things that's kind of funny, Gerald and I were talking about this, is when I first started doing IG, I would post a lot of actual comic book pages or covers that I'd done and that. And lately, because of Comic Cons, the fans all seem to want to see the Comic Con sketches. So if you go there, there's a lot of loose sketches, but there's also quality work in there too. You just have to go past the loose sketches. But
well, it's a visual treat.
I like sketching in 15 minutes. But
yeah, and I think that's the thing is that I encourage everybody to check out his Instagram account because it gives a snapshot into the talent that John brings to the table. And, you know, I found a lot of his panel work on comicartfans.com. Check that out. That's a lot of the photos that I showed here on the show as well. But John is a tremendous talent, and it's been an honor to have you here on the show. And so as you know, what we'd like to do is, you know, I'm going to hand the mic back up to you again, because now we've heard about the future. You know, we've talked about Doc Knock, your future project, Frankenstein project with George, you know, your ventures into NFT, just so many cool things. You know, you're on the cutting edge in terms of like what, you know, the industry is bringing, and it's just really neat. So I put at the bottom, this is, it's John Delaney 40 on Instagram. So that's how you can like and follow. And if you want to get a commission from him, I don't know if he has. He's directing. He's doing all sorts of like animation projects. He's doing his artwork. But who knows? Maybe there might be a project where he can do a commission for you, or maybe you can get him to actually help you do, realize that vision of like maybe an advertisement or a movie or something like that.
100%. So, if there's anything I can do, just DM me. If I've got the time, I'll do it. I'll be honest with you, commissions wise, I love doing them so much. And I really like when somebody has an inspired choice or something like that. Recently somebody had me do Invader Zim. Hadn't drawn him in years. So I was like, yeah, cool. So anything you guys want to do, Marvel, DC, anything Hanna-Barbera, drama, Simpsons. I love doing that stuff. So anything you want to do, just reach out. If I have the time, I'll do it. I'll usually give you a timeline about what it'll take. And once we've established that, it's good. I also, one of the things for commissions, because at Comic-Cons, I take about maybe the most 15 minutes to do a commission. So if you're looking for that kind of commission, I just charge you the same I would charge at a Comic-Con. If you want to do a little bit more, finished, properly colored, and, all pens, but, actually doing it digitally and all that, it's a little more expensive than that. So it's, I have different prices for different people's needs and that sort of thing. If you want to make it just a Comic-Con sketch, yeah, man, I can do that for you. Sell it by mail, and, we can keep the price pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's another thing. I would actually encourage you to actually go to, John, maybe you need to like put your con appearances on your Instagram. And that way people can actually, that way people can go out and meet you, because this interview, they're going to get a story to go along with any illustration that you commission him to do. And you get to see that spontaneous energy that he brings to every sketch. And you're going to actually hear his story, so it's going to be really cool to see that. So, let's move to the final part of the show, which is called the Oscar speech. Now, the Oscar speech has definitely gotten a little bit of a infamy associated based on some events that happened earlier during the last Oscars. Rest assured that John isn't going to reach across the camera and slap Gerald, but he's definitely going to give a chance. I want to give the mic back to him and just give John an opportunity to give his final thoughts, any thank yous, because you've been just a tremendous guest, and I would just like to give you an opportunity to say that. So the mic is back in your hands.
Well, thanks. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Gerald. Thanks very much for having me on the show. This has been absolutely a blast. I've had so much fun. I didn't even realize how much time. Oh my gosh, I'm not even aware of it because I've had so much fun. So thank you so much. There's so many people in the industry that I have to thank over the years that have been just so kind. And I won't remember names, but Charlie Kochman and Steve Corte and Casey Carlson, who all kind of gave me my start at DC. Those were huge. Nathan Kane and Matt Groening, of course. Bill Morrison at Bongo Comics, where Jason Ho, wonderful. James Lloyd, a friend of mine who was working for Bongo, got me in at Bongo. I've had so many great encounters with people, and just, really, really easy to work with. And Mike, I'm just trying to think of all the people. Why is Mike's last name alluding to me? He used to be the editor-in-chief, Mike Carlin. There we go. Mike Carlin was also very, very good to me at DC Comics, and all the different people I've worked with in animation. It's been phenomenal. Animation is such a team job, and everybody contributes. So when you're directing and you have people that work with you really, really well, it's wonderful. A couple of names that stand out. Todd Ramsey, he currently owns the animation studio out here called Yeti Farm, and they do phenomenal work. And Todd and I worked on a couple of projects together, and it's always been amazing. Mark Salisbury, there's just so many people that I've encountered over the years that have been so supportive. And one of the great parts of something like that in anybody's career is you can take it one of two ways. You can think to yourself, I deserve that because I've worked really, really hard and they're helping me do this. Or you can say, I'm one of many, many people who do this, and I'm really, really fortunate to work with these people. And that's the way I choose to look at it. Every single time I get a chance to work with somebody better than me, it makes me better. And if you've got the right attitude and you think to yourself, this isn't a competition, it's a challenge, it really makes a big difference in your life. And for all the artists that are up and coming in that draw, one day away from drawing and you notice the difference, 2 days away from drawing and everybody notices the difference.
Wow. That is like, I'm going to put that on the top, like, Oscar speeches that we've had here on the Let It Out show. And I'm just continuing impressed with, just, your nuggets of wisdom, your charisma, that you bring, you're encouraging. And I'm eating it up. It's truly an honor to have you here on the show. And
thank you.
I'm looking forward to when we can have you.
You're a great host, by the way, buddy.
Thank you.
This show has been so much fun to do. Thank you.
Well, awesome. So I want everybody to know that if you look at the bottom, again, it's John Delaney 40 on Instagram. That's how you can like and follow him. Truly a humble yet extremely talented individual. I encourage you to like and follow him, and just reach out to him, because I'm sure that he'd be willing to just talk to you. You can have your John Byrne moment with John Delaney, and know that John is a bigger fan of just it, of the fan experience. He's sympathetic to the fan experience, and he's going to be able to talk to you, and if you have any questions. So that being said, like we do with all of our shows, we end our shows with this. So let me share this real quick. And let me hide this real quick. Okay. So this is the part of the show where we recognize a charity partner group that we work with. And that charity group is called Golden Fight. You can find them at goldenfight.org. They are an organization that I like to call big enough and small enough at the same time. Small enough in the sense that they are not nationwide. They have a very focused area geographic area that they focus on, and that's like the Mid-Atlantic region, my neck of the woods of the United States. And by doing that, this is where they're big. This is where they're huge. They are an organization that helps families that have children that are dealing with very difficult diseases like cancer. And when that happens, families will inevitably experience financial difficulties, and that's where Golden Fight comes in. They raise money for these families so the parents can focus on the healing of their child. And this is another reason why they're big. 100% of the money that they raise goes to those families. I thought it was like 98, 97%, and that 2 or 3% would go to cover like administrative things, very nominal amount, but all the leadership, all of them do it volunteer. They do it as a volunteer. People that work with them and for them do it volunteer, so that they can give 100% of the money they raise to these families. So we can kick cancer's ass. We can get rid of them, get rid of cancer, and save these kids. So we are not financially tied to them at all, but we encourage you to check them out. They're a worthy charity. Go to goldenfight.org and check them out. And that's all I got to say about that. So let me remove this. And I want to say thank you once again to our guest, John. I'm looking forward to having you on the show again. Maybe I can have you on the show with George, and you guys can talk about Stein, that new project. But it'll be a treat.
Edgewise, girl.
Okay. Right. No problem whatsoever. It's been a treat, an honor, and a privilege to have you here on the show. So I want to let everybody know we love you. We love the indie comic community, and it's our pleasure to promote creators just like John. And we look forward to seeing another talented guest, or showcasing another talented guest next week. So stay tuned for that, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Sunday. And I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I think we'll just have to stay tuned to the Comics Cast Facebook page for any news to be there. So happy Easter. We love you all. Have a good Sunday.
Happy Easter.
All right. Comics Cast out.